Chapter 737. First Encounter Main Attack. This meant that he would have to fight the Demon Realm's envoy head-on, while ensuring that the other formation cores weren't threatened. Yi Zichen had no idea how strong a half-step saint was. But when he thought about it in a normal way, he definitely had a place in the upper three realms. Yet, Lu Qing was the one to fight against such an expert. Yi Zichen was worried, but he didn't know what to say. Say something nice. That wouldn't be of any real use. Lu Qing could also feel Yi Zichen struggle, so she stopped worrying about who the main attacker was and smiled. I'll discuss with Brother 12 about the main attacker. I think we still lack a formation core. I'll go. Flame Emperor and Great Sacred Emperor equaling heavens spoke up at the same time. They would definitely not reject such an important matter of the three realms. Their unhesitant reply was a stark contrast to the Jade Emperor's hesitation. Yi Zichen, who already disliked the Jade Emperor, snorted, "Let's see what these two are thinking." The Jade Emperor remained silent. He didn't think that his hesitation was embarrassing. Cultivation was going against the heavens, and his life was more important than his face. What's more, risking his life was not righteous, it was just showing off. We only need one person for the formation core. As for the person going, let this one in purple come with us. No problem, what do you need me to do? Great Sacred Emperor equaling heavens asked seriously. It's not like I can explain it to you here. How about this, I'll give you half a day to settle everything here, then I'll take you to the God Realm. It's best if you do it as soon as possible. We need to get used to the spiritual formations, so time is of the essence, Lu Qing said. To the God Realm? The Jade Emperor's eyes lit up. Why did I persist for so many years? Wasn't it just to go to the God Realm? He didn't know that setting up a spiritual formation would take him to the God Realm. If Lu Qing had told him earlier, he definitely would have agreed. Hearing that, Great Sacred Emperor equaling heavens was also overjoyed. None of them dared to say they didn't want to go to the God Realm. On the other hand, Flame Emperor's expression darkened. God Realm? I didn't go there. Alright, hurry up and make the arrangements. The Jade Emperor, who was already in a hurry to ascend to the God Realm, hurriedly made arrangements. In the next hour, the entire heavenly court was thrown into chaos by him. That was going to the God Realm. His heart was already filled with grass. Why should he care about the heavenly court? He should hurry to the God Realm. As for the Great Sacred Emperor equaling heavens, he was even more carefree. He had always been a hands-off shopkeeper in the underworld, so he didn't go back to make any arrangements. Be careful. Yi Zichen waved towards Lu Jing and company, who nodded, then disappeared from the bridge. Even though the Rainbow Bridge had already disappeared from the heavenly court, Yi Zichen still stood in front of the cloudy palace of the Golden Arches and watched it for a full hour. They will definitely come back. Xiao Yumei still had that gentle smile on her face. Her smile was like a warm breeze and her voice was like a calming requiem. He chuckled and hugged her shoulders. Even though they had been apart for a whole year, but vaguely, this scene seemed to have happened yesterday. You're right. They'll definitely come back. Yi Zichen nodded confidently. Although his words weren't as useful as a proverb, they were still a form of helplessness. Brother Yi, are we going back to the immortal region or? Flame Emperor held the ley line in his arms like it was a treasure. That was what Yi Zichen told him to do. The ley line is not used to the spiritual energy in the heavenly court, so it's better to bring it back to the immortal region to recover. Let's go to the outer regions of the immortal region. I won't be going to your side. Everything that had happened back then was still fresh in his mind. Even after so much time had passed, Yi Zichen still felt some sort of resistance towards the sacred land of the immortal region. Sure. Flame Emperor nodded. Half a day ago, Yi Zichen walked through the South Heaven's Gate while surrounded by deities. He was still escorted by the immortals as he left the South Heaven Gate. Brother, aren't you in too much of a hurry to leave? Yang Jian said reluctantly. Monkey Bro said he'd come back later. Sky Sovereign, you left just like that, Canopy Marshal said helplessly. Although the other immortals didn't say anything, it was clear from their expressions that they were reluctant to part. Yi Zichen smiled. We still have a lot of time to gather in the future. The Jade Emperor hasn't been around recently, so I'm sure he's arranged a lot of work for you guys to do. It's better for all of you to carry out your duties and handle your tasks properly. That's true. The immortals nodded. They did receive the summons not long ago. Even if Sky Sovereign stayed, they might not be able to take care of him since they had tasks to do. Alright, stop spacing out. Hurry up and get back to work. We'll meet again when we have time. With that, Yi Zichen left the South Heaven's Gate with Flame Emperor and Xiaoyumei. At that moment, a celestial-robed figure descended from the sky. Chang'e, the immortals nodded with a smile. Where's him? Although Chang'e didn't say who he was, the immortals knew that she was referring to Yi Zichen. Sky Sovereign just descended. Hearing this, Chang'e hurriedly dashed out of the South Heaven Gate, but she only saw a few blurry figures. For some reason, Xiaoyumei, who was descending with Yi Zichen, felt her heart skip a beat. She turned around and saw Chang'e, who was standing at the South Heaven's Gate. At the same time, Chang'e also saw her. An indescribable feeling welled up in their hearts. Xiaoyumei subconsciously stopped and looked at that person with a frown. Yumei, let's go. Oh, okay. Only then did Xiaoyumei return to her senses, then left with Yi Zichen. When their figures disappeared, Chang'e, who was standing at the South Heaven's Gate, frowned. Sky Sovereign said that he'll return after a while. The immortals thought that Chang'e was disappointed because she didn't see Sky Sovereign, so they comforted her. Chang'e merely nodded. Then, she couldn't help but ask when she thought about Xiaoyumei. Do you know who the woman beside Yi Zichen is? The immortals remained silent. It seems like they're jealous? Everyone laughed it off and didn't talk about it. Only Yang Jian, the stubborn guy, said it. She seems to be brought here by the God Realm's envoy. She seems to be rather familiar with my bro, I see. Chang'e nodded with a smile. Chang'e nodded, then smiled. I won't be staying here any longer. I'll be returning to the Moon Palace. Yet, at the same time, Yi Zichen, I have something to ask you. Xiaoyumei, who was following Yi Zichen down, spoke up. What is it? Chapter 738. Valley of Death. At the Valley of Death. Yi Zichen had already mocked the name of the valley more than once. Logically speaking, due to the existence of spiritual herbs and medicines, the spiritual energy in the valley was denser than any of the three realms. However, a valley like this, which could be called a blessed land, was given the name of Death, causing people outside the immortal region to avoid it. Lori sat on a rock and gripped her clothes tightly as she watched pitifully as Yi Zichen poured bottles of her favorite jelly beans around the ley line. She watched as the jelly beans turned into nothingness and entered the ley line's spiritual vein. It had only been an hour. Lori calculated in her heart. The amount of jelly beans Yi Zichen had poured out was more than all the jelly beans she had eaten recently. Wow, you're so wasteful. Seeing that Yi Zichen was about to fall over, Lori jumped down and hugged his arm. Don't feed it anymore. Give me all of these. Lori, be a good girl. I'm busy. The ley line's withered state was clearly due to the disturbance it had caused it to lose balance between the output and absorption of spiritual energy. The valley was filled with spiritual energy, so it was clearly the most suitable place for it to recover. With the help of the spiritual herbs, Yi Zichen believed that it was only a matter of time before it recovered. However, the exact time was still unknown. Don't you just want to replenish its spiritual energy? I'll replenish it. Can you stop feeding it jelly beans? Lori's heart ached. Those jelly beans were enough for her to eat for a long time, but Yi Zichen actually gave them all to that guy. You can? Yi Zichen was shocked. If you feed it like that, it won't be able to replenish its spiritual energy no matter how much you pour. How about this? Give me all of these jelly beans, and I promise it'll be alive and kicking in 3 days. Are you sure? Of course I'm sure, but that's only if you give me a lot of delicious jelly beans. As she said that, Lori looked at the porcelain bottle in Yi Zichen's hand with shining eyes. Although Lori was a glutton, she definitely wouldn't speak without thinking. Yi Zichen believed that she definitely had a plan since she could say something like that. Without any hesitation, he placed all of the pills in front of Lori. The medicinal pills were piled up into a small mountain. When little Lori saw this, the light in her eyes grew even brighter. These are all mine? If you can restore the dragon vein, this is just a deposit. There will definitely be more candies for you to eat in the future. Okay. It's a deal. With that, she reached out a finger. When Yi Zichen saw this, he froze for a moment, then came to a sudden realization and placed his finger on her pinky. It's a deal. Yay, these candies are all mine. Lori giggled as she ran up to the pile of pills and waved at Yi Zichen. Leave this place to me. Go do what you need to do. Was he chasing him away? At first, Yi Zichen thought he'd just have to keep an eye on Lori. However, when he saw her excitedly sitting in front of the pills and wolfing them down, he couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. For a moment, he actually had the thought that she might really just want to eat pills. Should I leave? Yi Zichen asked in a testing manner. Yeah, won't you just absorb its spiritual energy if you don't leave? Lori stuffed a pill into her mouth and mumbled. Do you know why nothing happened after you fed it for so long? It's because all of the spiritual energy it absorbed was transferred to you. Slap. Yi Zichen slapped his thigh. No wonder I didn't sense any improvement in the dragon vein. That's the reason. The dragon vein was the lifeline of the 3 realms. Its purpose was to absorb the surrounding spiritual energy and purify it, then distribute the purified spiritual energy to the various parts of the 3 realms. When Yi Zichen fed it a spiritual pill, it did absorb it, but it also transferred it to Yi Zichen. Although it was extremely weak at the moment, it was its duty, so he still had to obey it. Then is it fine for you to stay here? Yi Zichen raised his eyebrows. Hey, I'm a spiritual herb, okay? Lori retorted. Even though it was already night and practically everyone in the longevity courtyard had turned off their lights to rest, there was still one room that was lit up. Yi Zichen pushed open the door and saw Xiao Yumei sitting by the bed and looking at Tian with a warm smile. You haven't rested yet? Yi Zichen smiled when he walked beside the bed. Only then did Xiao Yumei notice his appearance. I don't really feel like sleeping. Tian must be really happy to see you, right? But Tian really has grown up a lot. She's more sensible now. Xiao Yumei caressed Tian's cheek. At that moment, Tian turned around and muttered, Mommy, I don't eat carrots. Tian's words tickled the 2 people by the bed. Yi Zichen caressed Tian's cheek, then looked at Xiao Yumei. Mommy, I don't eat carrots. Oh yeah, I have something to tell you, Xiao Yumei suddenly said. I didn't dare to tell you about it because you were busy earlier. I saw that you were busy earlier, so I didn't dare to tell you about this. How did you escape from the demons? Did Lu Jing save you? That's what I wanted to tell you, Xiao Yumei pursed her lips. The demon realm you speak of seems to have changed hands. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Xiao Yumei pursed her lips. The demon realm you speak of seems to have changed owners. What? I don't really understand the factions over here, but the demons have all retreated. The place I've been staying at now is controlled by someone called Guli, said Xiao Yumei. Him? Yi Zichen frowned. This brat is actually still alive. But why is he in control? He doesn't have any faction to rely on. Did he take over someone else's place? After that, Su Yun left with me. Along the way, he left me on a cliff and told me that someone would bring me to you in a while. Not long after he left, Lu Jing appeared, so I followed her. Yi Zichen's heart was filled with confusion when he heard Xiao Yumei's words. How could he know where and when Lu Jing would appear? What's more, what else did he say to you? Don't worry, Xiao Yumei thought for a moment. He also said that Guli will be a disaster in the future. His current faction is no weaker than any other faction, so he needs to be eliminated as soon as possible. Of course, he didn't say that to me, but I feel like he wanted to tell you through me. Anything else? Anything else? Xiao Yumei gently bit her lips. She pondered for a long time before her expression changed slightly. Then, her expression changed slightly. You guys were actually good friends before, right? Why do you ask? When I was in the Devil Realm, he always took good care of me. Once, when he was drinking outside my courtyard, I accidentally heard him say that with you as a brother, he would never regret it in this life. He even said that it was worth it, but what? Chapter 739. Six-Leaf Orchid. Chapter 739. Six-Leaf Orchid. Yi Zichen, who was standing by the window, carefully listened to Xiao Yumei's word. An enemy, not a friend. Su Yun seemed to have said something like that more than once. If Yi Zichen hadn't received the Yellow Emperor's memories, he would have definitely viewed him as an enemy. But now that he thought about it, it was as if Su Yun was purposely pushing Yi Zichen against him in order to make Yi Zichen hate him. Su Yun had countless ways to get rid of Yi Zichen, but he didn't do any of them. Even though Su Yun's methods were incomprehensible, Yi Zichen still managed to survive. Alright, I got it. Yi Zichen nodded, then caressed Xiao Yumei's cheeks with a smile. Rest early. I won't waste any more of your time here. Just as he was about to leave the room, Xiao Yumei suddenly grabbed his hand and hugged him from behind. Just don't go. 2 days passed by in the blink of an eye. Tian, who had been asking to see her mother, finally got to see Xiao Yumei. She no longer stuck to Yi Zichen and followed Xiao Yumei around every day. That way, Yi Zichen could relax and focus more on other problems. For example, I'm telling you, we had a deal back then. These jelly beans are just a down payment. After the ley line recovers, you'll give me even more jelly beans to eat. Lori pouted, then spread her arms to block the pile of pills behind her like a chick protecting its food. Yi Zichen couldn't help but admit that her pill tolerance was truly shocking. Although it was just a normal spiritual recovery pill, even an immortal king would explode from the way she ate it. It had only been 2 days, and the pills that were like a small mountain before were now reduced to a small pile. As long as the ley line could recover, Yi Zichen would be able to afford any amount of pills. Since he promised Lori that he would give her more, he naturally wouldn't go back on his word. But the prerequisite was that the ley line had to recover. Of course I keep my word. But you don't seem to be making any progress? The ley line was still as listless as it was in the heavenly court. It lay on the ground without moving. At that moment, Yi Zichen was very suspicious of whether Lori had only cared about eating and didn't care about the ley line at all. Have you infused it with spiritual energy these past few days? No. To Yi Zichen's disbelief, Lori said it without any hesitation. You, noticing the change in Yi Zichen's expression, Lori giggled. Why are you in such a hurry? I'll just let it recover now. However, you have to give me more medicinal pills, right? Hurry up. Yi Zichen didn't know what to say, so he could only urge her. All right. Little Lu Li took a few steps forward and carefully placed the unfinished bottle of pills into her pocket. Biting her lips, she patted Long Mai's head reluctantly. I'm going to give you all the spiritual power that I've been eating for so long. Don't disappoint me, okay? As soon as she finished speaking, the aura around little Lori changed. A refreshing fragrance wafted through the entire valley. Little Lu Li's white hair turned from black to white, and a crescent moon appeared in her eyes. She gently patted Long Mai's body, and her eyes glowed brightly. Drink. Little Lori let out a delicate cry, and in an instant, the fragrance in the canyon grew thicker and thicker. Yi Zichen, who stood behind him, stared at the scene in shock. Boom. He broke through. He'd been stuck at the peak of the world-defying stage for so long without any guidance, but now, he'd reached the half-step Divine King level. Hey, don't steal my spiritual energy. At that moment, Lori suddenly yelled at Yizichin. I didn't, Yizichin said innocently. He hadn't used any incantations at all. The spiritual energy had entered his body on its own, so he couldn't do anything about it. Then what do you want me to do? Never mind, never mind. Little Lori waved her hand at him, and then a crescent mark appeared between her brows. A huge whirlpool of spiritual energy appeared above her head. The whirlpool continuously devoured the spiritual energy of the three realms. Everyone in the three realms could faintly sense that the spiritual energy in the air was gathering in a certain direction. Rumble. Wah, just how much of my spiritual energy are you going to eat? Fine, I'll let you. Little Luli glared fiercely at the ley line in her hand. The surrounding spiritual energy grew denser and denser. So long as you stretched out your hand, you could even grab a tangible spiritual energy droplet. A full 2 hours passed. The lack of spiritual energy in the three realms had already caused panic. Many of the stronger people began to gather in the direction where the spiritual energy was gathering. At the same time, the ley line in little Luli's hand gradually regained its luster. Until it opened its eyes. Roar. The ley line roared, and the patterns on its body shone brightly. Then, it began to release even purer spiritual energy into the outside world. Success. Yizichin's face lit up. Just as he clenched his fist in excitement, he noticed that little Luli, who'd been standing in front of the ley line, was about to fall over. Luli. Yizichin quickly went up to Lori. Only then did he notice that Lori's face was as white as paper, while the crescent moon on her forehead had also dimmed. I'm telling you, little Luli said weakly as she lay in Yizichin's arms. You owe me a lot of sweets. Got it? Don't go back on your word. Yizichin couldn't help but feel a bit of heartache when he saw her like that. He roughly understood little Luli used her own spiritual energy to awaken the ley line. To awaken the ley line, Yizichin could tell from her aura just now that the amount of spiritual energy needed was enormous. However, he couldn't help but smile wryly when he saw that she was still thinking about pills. This gluttonous loli. All right, I'll give you more than enough sweets from now on. Hearing the reply, little Luli smiled with happiness and stretched out her finger, saying, That's right. You said it. Let's pinky swear. But I'm really tired, so I'm going to sleep. When I wake up, you have to give me a lot of sweets. In the end, she didn't finish her sentence. Her raised hand also slid down, while her eyelids closed weakly. Yizichin didn't pay too much attention at the start. He simply thought that it was because she was too tired. However, he suddenly noticed that little Luli, who was in his arms, was rapidly shrinking, until she turned into a 6-leaf orchid. Yizichin panicked. He had thought that little Luli was just tired and wanted to rest. But she. Chapter 740. I'm coming for you. After Lori returned to her original form, Yizichin was in no mood to care about the ley line. He directly returned to the subdimension the white-robed man left behind. Yizichin, who had never experienced something like this before, was a bit lost in thought. He found the Flame Emperor, who was rather knowledgeable about plants, but even he couldn't explain it. Actually, you don't have to worry too much. Yizichin turned his head and noticed that it was Xianyuan Xiang who walked over. Her makeup was that of a wandering warrior, while her long hair was tied up casually with a hairband. Coupled with the way she held Xianyuan's sword, she looked rather like a heroine. Do you know the reason? Yizichin frowned. She used up too much spiritual energy, causing her to be unable to maintain her human form. Hasn't she been asking you for pills all this time? The spiritual energy from the pills is what she needs to maintain her human form. But this time, she transferred all of her spiritual energy into the ley line, so she naturally has to return to her main body to slowly accumulate spiritual energy, Xianyuan Xiang said very casually. Xianyuan Xiang spoke very casually, and there was not the slightest hint of nervousness on her face. However, she noticed that Yi Zichen wasn't moved by her words. She couldn't help but speak up once more. She couldn't help but speak up once again. She's a human formed by a medicine king. There definitely won't be any problems. Trust me. Why are you so sure? Yi Zichen, who had the Yellow Emperor's memories, knew that he definitely wasn't worse than anyone else. What's more, Xianyuan Xiang was born around the same time as him, so why does she know so much? Little fellow, Big Sis is a divine artifact that the dragons poured their blood and sweat into. There were plenty of dragon souls mixed in when I forged it. You should listen to Big Sis when it comes to that. That does seem to be the case. Yi Zichen blinked, then couldn't help but ask, are you sure? At the end of the day, Lori became like this because of him. If anything went wrong, then he might not be able to forgive himself for the rest of his life. Since she was able to become a medicine king, her life force is definitely much stronger than you can imagine. Just relax, Xianyuan Xiang comforted with a smile. Yi Zichen nodded, then looked at Lori, who had turned into a six-leafed flower. In her original form, her roots were sparkling and clear. Without any help, she was actually able to float in the air, and he could vaguely feel her absorbing the spiritual power around her. If I were you, I would never leave her here. In the immortal domain with the dragon vein, the concentration of spiritual energy was much higher than here. If you want her to recover as soon as possible, Maple City is a good choice, Xianyuan Xiang said. Without any hesitation, Yi Zichen brought Lori to Maple City and carefully placed her in the courtyard of the Longevity Manor. Then, he sat down beside her and sensed how she was absorbing the surrounding spiritual energy. After confirming that Xianyuan Xiang was telling the truth, he let out a long sigh of relief and raised his head to look at the sparkling dragon vein in the sky. The one who benefited the most from the restoration of the dragon vein was naturally the immortal region. Whether it was the residents of the immortal domain or the flowers and plants in the immortal domain, all of them broke through their shackles under the nourishment of the dragon vein. Looking at the time, it should be about time for Lu Jing and the others to make their move. In a space that was mainly gray in color, the surroundings were filled with disgusting purple demonic energy. Qiu Hai, who had once shown off his prowess in the lower three realms, was currently standing half a step behind a muscular man and bowing slightly to show his respect. Lil Hai, are you sure that the Xianyuan sword has reappeared? Qiu Hai was one of the more experienced existences in the demon realm, and there were very few people who could call him Lil Hai. However, the muscular man in front of him was one of those few people. He was one of the 12 generals under the demon realm's Emperor Zun, as well as a special envoy from the lower three realms. Sid. General Sid, it is indeed the Xianyuan sword. I believe you must have felt it in the demon realm as well. I did feel a strange ripple earlier, but it will appear whenever a spiritual treasure is born. I was on the verge of breaking through, so I didn't pay too much attention to it. Qiu Hai nodded. Sid nodded. The demon realm isn't in a very good situation right now. It would be great if the Xianyuan sword is in our hands. But, you've been in the lower three realms for so long. Have you found any news of the Qiyu sword after being in the lower three realms for so long? I haven't, Qiu Hai shook his head. The Qiyu sword was the divine artifact of Qiyu, the demon king of the demon realm. However, after the battle with the Yellow Emperor, he disappeared without a trace. They had yet to discover Qiyu's reincarnation, nor the existence of the Qiyu sword. If Black Dragon knew about this, he would definitely sneer. This was actually his little scheme. He didn't tell Qiu Hai about Gu Li's identity when he was in the lower three realms. Originally, he thought that he would be able to take the Qiyu sword for himself when he broke through. However, fate made a fool out of him. He didn't expect that Gu Li, who he had never thought highly of, would take his place. You're too smart for your own good. What a pity. To be honest, I really dislike the Xianyuan sword. If the mighty demon realm uses a weapon forged by those sanctimonious people in the god realm to rise, wouldn't that be a huge stain on our reputation? Sid snorted. General, you're right. However, we don't have to use the Xianyuan sword. Let's just steal the Xianyuan sword this time and stop the god realm from using it. Then, we can slowly search for the Chiyu sword and kill them until they piss their pants. Haha, I like your words, Sid laughed. Sid laughed heartily, his eyes filled with arrogance. Yes, we can't let those people from the God Realm get the Xianyuan sword. I heard that the God Realm's Four-Direction Palace also sent a special envoy to the lower three realms. I also heard that the one they sent is just a little girl. Don't let me run into her. If I do… A bloodthirsty light flickered in Sid's eyes. It was as if he was already imagining the scene of him tearing the God Realm's envoy to pieces. Buzz, just as Sid was boasting, a strange rune suddenly appeared beneath his and Chiu Hai's feet. The rune extended outwards and instantly formed a spiritual formation. General, it's an ambush! Chiu Hai shouted, but he immediately hid behind Sid. Sid, on the other hand, did not seem to mind. He arrogantly took 2 steps forward and laughed. Which idiot dares to block your master Sid's path? Chapter 741. Four Directions Spirit-Boosting Formation. Lu Qing's fiery red battle robe shone brightly as she stood barefooted in midair. A purple sash floated beside her as she stared at Sid, who was twice her height and could be considered a giant. I was wondering who it was. You're the little girl from the God Realm. Sid only paused for a moment before coming back to his senses. He smiled fearlessly, revealing his yellow teeth. In the blink of an eye, he stopped smiling. His eyes narrowed into slits as he looked at Lu Qing with pursed lips. But you're quite interesting, little girl. Why didn't you go look for your divine artifact, the Xianyuan sword? What are you doing in my demon realm's territory? Could it be that you're here to deliver food to Master Sid? Your soft skin and tender flesh look delicious. With that, Sid glared at Lu Qing as if he wanted to devour her. Drool would occasionally flow out of the corner of his mouth, and he would wipe it away with his huge hands. Lu Jing remained unmoved. She maintained her indifferent expression as she reached out to grab the purple ribbon that was floating in the air. Whether it's delicious or not depends on whether you can eat it or not. Whoosh! Lu Jing, who was in the air, instantly turned into a shadow and disappeared. In the blink of an eye, she appeared behind Sid and swung the belt in her hand at his back. General! Chiu Hai cowered behind Lu Qing and warned her. Although it was embarrassing, he believed that his life was more important than that. Just as he was about to succeed, Sid, whose back was facing Lu Jing, suddenly smirked. Poochie! 2 bone spikes suddenly appeared on his back. The bone spikes were sharp and glinted with a cold light. They instantly pierced through Lu Qing's sash and extended towards her heart. Lu Qing nimbly leaped backwards, barely dodging the 2 bone spikes. However, she stopped in her tracks. She couldn't attack anymore because… Come at me. Your master Sid is standing right here. Why don't you try? Sid had already turned into a porcupine covered in bone spikes. Lu Qing stood in the air with a troubled expression. The bone spikes were as sharp as a low-quality divine artifact. Don't think that he was using this pile of bone spikes to defend. In fact, these bone spikes were already aiming at the most tricky spots to attack. No matter which direction the attack came from, his bone spikes posed a great threat to the attacker. The 12 generals of the demon world truly lived up to their reputation. Licking her lips, Lu Jing took a few steps back. Buzz, the moment she stopped, a dark green light suddenly burst forth, dispersing some of the disgusting purple devil chi in the air. Immediately after, the Jade Emperor and the others, who were already standing at the eye of the formation, appeared out of thin air. They formed a triangle with Lu Qing in the center. From the path of the spirit formation, one could see that their spirit energy was gathering towards Lu Qing. Sid, who was covered in bone spikes, frowned. She could vaguely feel the spiritual energy gathering around her, but she couldn't make any big movements in her current state. These bone spikes seemed to be helping him defend, but in fact they could also cause harm to him. He could only predict the most reasonable position at the first moment, and the rest was to wait for the enemy to exhaust himself. Little girl, your future isn't limited to eating a spirit-increasing pill at a time like this. Don't make a mistake, Sid said mockingly. Sid's mocking tone was still the same. In his opinion, even if she took the spirit-increasing pill, it would at most increase her strength by 30%. However, as a Sky Supreme, even a 30% increase in strength wouldn't pose any threat to him. At that moment, Chiu Hai, who had been hiding in a corner, suddenly shouted, "General, she didn't eat a spirit-increasing pill. General, she didn't consume a spirit-increasing pill. She used the 4-directional spirit-increasing formation." What? Sid was shocked. At the same time, Lu Qing, who was standing at the center of the formation, slowly rose into the air. Faint green light flickered around her, a sign that she was overflowing with spiritual energy. "Thank you for your hard work." Lu Qing bowed deeply towards the Jade Emperor and the others, and the belt in her hand suddenly transformed into a flexible sword. "Hedgehog, I wonder how much strength you have left after cutting off all your spikes?" Lu Qing's expression froze, and the flexible sword instantly slashed towards the bone spikes on Sid's back. Bang, bang, bang. The bone spikes around Sid's body were as hard and sharp as a low-grade divine artifact. However, when faced with Lu Qing's belt, it was as easy as cutting through tofu. It didn't take much effort at all. The bone spikes were Sid's real body, so the breaking of the bone spikes would naturally cause substantial damage to him. A muffled groan came from his nostrils. He would definitely not cry out. Crying out in pain would be an insult to him. "Chiu Hai, what are you doing?" Sid, who had been enduring the pain, roared angrily. Chiu Hai gulped. He shouldn't have tried to stop Lu Qing. Go break the formation. If he could, Sid really wanted to kill this coward right now. When Lu Jing came out, he had been hiding. Now, even in this situation, he was still hiding, not doing anything. 4 corners spirit-increasing formation. Destroy the other formation cores, and the main formation core will naturally lose its spiritual energy boost. The other 3 formation cores definitely don't have any spiritual energy left. Go kill them. Do you want to die? At this moment, Sid finally threatened Chiu Hai with death. Chiu Hai clenched his teeth and made up his mind, screw it. The Jade Emperor, who was sitting paralyzed in the formation core, felt his heart skip a beat. He definitely couldn't use any spiritual energy right now. The enemy had clearly found a way to break the formation. If they really came, did you ask me if you wanted to touch them? Lu Qing smiled indifferently. The belt in her hand suddenly extended and wrapped around Chiu Hai, then threw him against a nearby cliff. Don't you find it hilarious that an ant wants to be the savior? She threw Chiu Hai onto the cliff, but before she could come back to her senses, giant magic body. Avatar. Lu Qing frowned. Sid, who had been locked onto by Lu Qing, pursed his lips into a smile. Nice one. Chiu Hai didn't want to die. He was more afraid of dying to a demon than dying to Lu Qing. He wasn't in the mood to hide his strength. He only had one thought to break the formation. An ant should have the awareness of being an ant. Wouldn't it have been better for you to just lie on the ground and pretend to be dead when I threw you out? Lu Qing bit her lips, causing a trail of blood to flow out from the corner of her mouth. A light-colored flame symbol suddenly appeared between her eyebrows. Her pupils instantly turned red, and one could vaguely see a burning flame in her pupils. Scram! She had already abandoned the support of the belt. She clenched her fist and punched a hole through Chiu Hai's avatar. However, the instant she punched through Chiu Hai's avatar, she realized. Chapter 742. The Sage's Little 17. Chui 12 shouted from the center of the formation. Lu Qing's back was completely exposed to Sid. A mistake like this would be fatal in a fight of this level. Little girl, you were the one who hurt me, Sid, just now, right? Sid clenched his fist and stomped down hard on the ground, causing it to crack. He turned into a streak of light and threw a punch at Lu Qing's back without hesitation. Smile. Little did he know, Lu Qing, who had her back to him, suddenly smirked. She wasn't the only one. Cui 12 and the others all laughed as well. Oh no. Sid didn't know what was wrong, but he still retracted his fist in midair and looked around vigilantly. What should I say to you if you don't take such a good opportunity? Lu Qing shrugged helplessly and turned around. She didn't seem to have any tricks up her sleeve. You're looking at me. If Sid still couldn't figure out what was going on, he would have to be an idiot. He glared fiercely with his camel bell-sized eyes and panted heavily. The purple demonic energy in the surroundings started gathering towards him. He, Sid, could not accept this humiliation. Die. Do it. Just as Sid was about to unleash his spiritual skill, Cui 12, who had been standing at the bottom of the formation, suddenly shouted. 3 chains made of spiritual energy suddenly appeared out of thin air and bound Sid tightly. As for Cui 12 and the other 2, they tugged on one end of the chain and shouted at Lu Jing with furrowed brows. Little 17, hurry up and finish him off. Chains. Sid stared at the silver chains that bound him. Could it be that they were smiling at him just now for this trick? But they shouldn't have any spiritual energy to support them under the 4-directional spirit amplification formation. Break. He tried to break the chains, but for some reason, they didn't show any signs of breaking. This is a demon suppression lock I used 300 points to exchange for. How can it be broken so easily? Cui 12 couldn't help but snicker, but his heart was bleeding. 300 points. After staying in the God realm for so long, he had only accumulated a little more than 500 points. Now, he had spent 300 points. Once Yi Zichen ascended, he'd definitely dig it out of his mouth. Crack. All of a sudden, Cui 12 heard a tiny crack. He looked up with a start. How is that possible? Although the demon suppression lock was a low-grade divine artifact, it was still a divine artifact produced by the sorcerer clan. The material it was made of was rather tough. Even if Sid was half a step away from becoming a sage, it was unbelievable that he could tear the demon suppression lock apart so quickly. Perhaps he had bought a fake demon suppressing lock. No matter what, the demon sealing lock was showing signs of breaking, so Cui 12 quickly reminded them. Little 17, be careful. There's something wrong with him. Lu Jing, who was looking for an opportunity, furrowed her brows. Although Sid was bound by the demon suppressing shackles, he was still able to escape. But during this period of time, his defense was still impeccable. She had been waiting for him to make a mistake in his anxious state. But before they could find any loopholes, their demon-suppressing lock was about to shatter. Lu Jing panicked. She didn't have the time to wait for Sid to make a mistake. She needed to create one. She grabbed the ribbon with her right hand, causing it to clink against Sid's body. Little girl, from the moment you chose this place as the ambush point, you've already lost, said Yi Zichen. Sid let the ribbon hit him without a care in the world. We demons have a unique advantage in the demon realm. That is, we can absorb the demonic energy in the surroundings to recover. But you guys can't. You can't replenish your spiritual energy here. Every bit you use means less. Actually, I can just fight a war of attrition here and take care of all of you. But I don't want to do that. I, General Sid, earned my reputation by killing. Only Zack would do that kind of sneaky thing. That's why Lord Sid will deal with you head-on. Bang. As soon as he finished speaking, the 3 chains all shattered. The 3 holding the demon suppressing lock fell to the ground, coughing up blood. Their faces were as pale as paper. The Jade Emperor and the Great Sacred Emperor equaling heaven wanted to use their spiritual energy to recover, but just as Sid had said, they couldn't absorb the demonic energy at all. You're smart to use the 4-directional spirit boosting formation to forcefully increase your spiritual energy. You look like you're half a saint. You must have done your research before I left. However, it's a pity that I'm no longer a half-step sage. Sid took one step at a time towards Lu Jing. With every step he took, the image of the horned ancient demon behind him became clearer and clearer. With him as the center, a strong pressure was released into the surroundings. Chui 12, who was sitting on the ground, was shocked. This, he broke through. A saint. I should have descended half a year ago, but why didn't I? Have you ever thought about that? Little girl, you're going to die here in the end. He pointed. Sid merely pointed a finger at Lu Jing. A ray of purple light shot out from his finger. Lu Jing instinctively blocked it with her belt. It pierced through. Her fair cheeks and the ribbon in her hands were stained with a touch of red. The red was blinding. Lu Jing's body swayed, but she didn't fall. Sid raised his finger again when he saw this. Another bloody hole appeared on his body. After that, Sid kept pointing at Lu Jing. The purple light kept shooting at Lu Jing. Chui 12's eyes were about to pop out of their socket. He wanted to leave the formation to help Lu Jing. Don't come out. After countless attempts, Lu Jing stubbornly climbed back up. Her arms and legs were covered in blood. She looked like she was covered in blood. It was a miserable sight. Lu Qing, who had her head drooped, smiled inexplicably. A red pill had appeared in her palm without anyone noticing. Because her hand was already covered in a blood-red color, it became the camouflage of the pill. Sid did not notice it at all. But Chui 12 did. He kept shaking his head. She couldn't eat it. She couldn't eat it. She popped the pill into her mouth without hesitation. Chui 12 almost fell into despair when he saw this. What the hell are you doing? He roared angrily. He knew all too well what the effects of this pill were. Noisy. The smug Sid frowned. His power as a saint was nothing in the entire 3 realms, but now he was strong. So strong that he was infatuated with him. He was very satisfied with Lu Jing's tenacious little toy. He wanted to keep playing with her, but she was too noisy. He raised his finger and shot a ray of purple light towards Chui 12's forehead. Bang! It was blocked. As for the person who blocked the attack. Chapter 743. Extreme Flames. The powerful purple ray of light struck Lu Qing's arm. It should have pierced through her arm, but it only left a barely visible white spot on her arm. A wisp of white smoke rose into the air. Lu Qing looked up indifferently. You're not as good as your mouth, are you? Sid, who was in control of the situation, raised his eyebrows slightly. The little girl that he had beaten into a sieve a moment ago was now standing in front of him unscathed. Her fiery red hair reached the ground, and her previously pitch-black eyes had turned fiery red. Especially just now, when she had blocked that attack unscathed. Sid shook his head. She must have used some sort of trick, but so what? It was impossible for him, Master Sid, to fall into the hands of this silly little girl. He had this confidence. Furthermore, this confidence was not baseless. His seniority in the 3 realms was quite high, and his title of general was earned by him in battle after battle. Although the current Lu Qing made him feel a trace of pressure, but so what? One had to know that his most glorious battle was when he killed a heavenly supreme with the strength of an earth supreme. That was a huge gap, but he did it. Now, even if Lu Qing used some tricks, even if her strength was slightly stronger than his, he still did not care. Brother 12, are you hurt? Ignoring Sid, Lu Qing turned around to look at Chui 12, who was sitting on the ground with a pained look on his face. Why did you do that? You can't eat that pill. Chui 12 cried out in pain. When he saw the flames on Lu Qing's forehead, he knew it was too late. She still did it. There's no other way, is there? Lu Qing smiled bitterly. Sage, with our strength, there's no way we can stop it. This is the only way, the only way. Chui 12 could clearly feel the bitterness in Lu Qing's heart when she said that. She would not have eaten that pill unless she had no other choice. When she was eating this pill, There must have been too many struggles in her heart that no one else knew about. All right, the medicinal effect of the pill cannot last for too long. I should get rid of this eyesore as soon as possible. Lu Qing smiled faintly as she turned around. The moment she turned around, the smile on her face completely disappeared. Use everything you have, or you won't stand a chance. Little girl, are you preaching to Master Sid? Sid sneered, but there was no arrogance or conceit in his heart. He was indeed confident in himself, but that did not mean that he could easily take care of this little girl. Boom! The violent spirit force swept up the surrounding demon chi and formed two tornado-like vortexes, causing the sky to change color. The howling wind was mixed with gravel and dry grass, leaving streaks of blood on Lu Jing's face. As soon as she opened her eyes, she would see Sid turning into 1,000 feet tall, covering the sky and laughing wildly. He raised his hands high, and all the devil chi in the world was mobilized by him. The Jade Emperor was stunned. He looked at the scene in shock. He could feel the trembling in the depths of his soul. In the blink of an eye, his heart was aflame. This was the power of a saint. Little girl, don't blame Master Sid for being too ruthless. You can only blame yourself for not grasping the opportunity he gave you. Sid laughed arrogantly as he stood proudly in the sky. Two tornadoes appeared on both sides of his body. His eyes narrowed, and he stretched out his hands to the back of the vortex and pushed it forward. Go! The vortex was accompanied by violent energy that swept over, and all the sand and stones below it were annihilated by its power. The two vortexes looked like they were going to swallow everything, and they quickly swept towards Lu Jing. Lu Jing stood in front of him with a faint smile, not the slightest bit moved. She only quietly raised her hands. You actually want to tear my storm apart with your bare hands, heh? Sid said mockingly. He knew very well how powerful this move was. Wanting to tear it apart with his bare hands was simply a pipe dream. He watched helplessly as Lu Jing was swallowed by the storm, but the next scene caused his sneering face to turn incomparably ugly. A pair of white hands with some fiery light reached out from the vortex. He crossed his hands and slowly moved in the opposite direction, tearing a hole in the vortex as his hands moved. The pale hands suddenly swung backwards, and the two sky-covering vortexes were instantly torn apart, turning into strands of demonic aura that returned to the surroundings. How is this possible? Sid was shocked. This girl actually managed to tear apart his magical storm with her bare hands. He subconsciously glanced at Lu Jing, and his pupils constricted. Behind Lu Jing stood an elder that was 100 feet tall. The elder looked like he was on the verge of death, but he gave off an irresistible aura. His hands were spread out on both sides of his body, and the highest level of flames burned in his palms, purple flames. Lu Jing also did the same thing as the old man. Her palms were also burning with purple flames, but her flames weren't scorching hot. They were ice. The true peak of the fire element. Chui 12 couldn't help but freeze when he felt the coldness of Lu Jing's flames. Purple flames did represent the highest level of the fire element, but it was not the extreme. The extreme of the fire element was ice. When things reached an extreme, they would move in the opposite direction. The purple flames in Lu Jing's hands combined with the coldness of the flames had already reached the true extreme of flames. I didn't expect little 17 to be so talented. No wonder His Majesty loves her so much. But Chui 12 sighed in amazement at Lu Jing's talent, but he also felt pity for her. Her future would have been even more colorful if she hadn't taken that pill. Never mind, perhaps for her. That's a good thing. For some reason, Chui 12 thought of Yi Zichen and the beauties around him. I'm returning what you just said to me, Lu Jing smiled. Lu Jing, whose hand was burning with flames, smiled indifferently. Actually, I gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. It's a pity that you're going to disappear from this world forever. It's time for the demon realm to find a new general. Wait. Sid suddenly raised his hand. Lu Jing, who was about to deal the final blow to Sid, stopped. Do you have any last wishes? I just want to know why you have the dermic body of a fire demon. Chapter 744. I'm begging you. Chapter 744. I'm begging you. The flames came. The deep purple flames engulfed Sid, causing his screams to be heard clearly. No matter how much he tried, or what he did, the flames did not go out. Gradually, Sid, who was rolling around on the ground, stopped struggling. In the end, he could only twitch slightly, until even the twitching stopped. At that moment, the flames also disappeared. Sid was charred, and a thin layer of ice crystals could be seen on his charred body. Is it over? The Jade Emperor, who had been through far too much, asked with lingering fear. He had to admit that he did shudder when Sid turned into a 100-meter-tall giant. Lu Jing's sudden outburst also filled his heart with indescribable shock. As expected of a special envoy from the god world, the great sacred emperor equaling heavens, who was not good with words, also gulped. He was only half a meter away from death just now. It was this Lolita-like girl who saved all of their lives. Swaying. Lu Jing, who was standing in front of them, suddenly swayed. Just as she was about to fall, Chui 12 reached out to support her. Are you all right? Lu Jing shook her head with a smile. I'm just a bit exhausted. We caused quite a commotion here, so let's hurry up and leave. It'll be troublesome if the other demons come over. Then Lu Jing pointed at Sid, whose face was completely burnt. She pursed her lips with a smile, then gently tapped the layer of ice with the belt in her hand. It shattered. The moment the ice shattered, Sid's body melted into the demonic energy in the air like ions, and became nourishment for the demonic energy. Chui 12's eyelids twitched when he saw that the pinnacle of fire truly lived up to its name. Yi Zichen's eyelids twitched non-stop for the past few days. He sat in the courtyard of the Longevity Garden and stared into the sky. He did not know why, but his heart was inexplicably flustered. Everyone else in the Longevity Garden was smart enough not to get on his bad side when they sensed his emotions. Just as Yi Zichen lit a cigarette with a frown, he suddenly sensed a few abnormal fluctuations of spiritual energy outside the immortal region. After he became a half-step immortal king, he could be said to be extremely sensitive to the slightest changes in spirit energy. He leaped into the void and his heart, which had been hanging in suspense, was finally at ease. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth as he gazed at the girl who was smiling back at him. Welcome back. Yi Zichen opened his arms towards her with a smile. Lu Yuansong, who was being supported by Chui 12, immediately broke free from Chui 12's support and ran into Yi Zichen's arms. She buried her head in his chest. At this moment no one spoke. He could only feel the beauty in his arms trembling. Swoosh! At this moment, a woman in a police uniform suddenly appeared in the void. The woman wore a big police cap and looked like a public security officer. This kind of dressing was very common in the modern realm, but in the immortal region it was very nondescript. I just took office. Why are there so many people trying to mess with me? The person was none other than the newly appointed master of the laws of the lower three realms, Lin Ru. Lin Ru put her hands on her hips and glared at the person in front of her like a shrew who was about to start cursing. Yi Zichen. Her scream was like a lion's roar, causing everyone's eardrums to hurt. Why did you come again? Yi Zichen rolled his eyes in annoyance, then looked at her dressing. What? You've fallen in love with cosplay recently? I'm not in the mood to bullshit with you. You had a white flower by your side, and now you have a little loli in your arms. Are you really looking down on our Susu? Back when our Su Yen was with you, she was the school beauty of Polytechnic University, the goddess of the entire school. If it was anyone else, wouldn't they be spoiled? But you, do you know how to flirt around? Lin Ru spoke up for Su Yen, then looked towards Lu Jing and Chui 12 with a frown. These two have already surpassed the spiritual energy limit of this place. I need to expel them. Is she Lin Ru? Lu Jing asked weakly. She had been with Yi Zichen for a long time, so she had some impression of most of the people in the modern realm. Yes, she's now the master of the laws here, Yi Zichen replied. Master of the laws. Lu Jing, Cui 12, and even the Jade Emperor and the Great Emperor were shocked when they heard that. The laws. It was unfathomable and undefiable. Now they actually saw the true appearance of the master of the laws. You know me. Lin Ru was deaf, so she could naturally hear what Lu Jing said. Then she raised her eyebrows and put her hands on her hip. Yi Zichen, you truly have no conscience. I thought you only had a few people around you in the modern realm. So you're hiding a canary here. Don't spout nonsense here, Yi Zichen said with a dark expression. Don't care about what I say. I'm telling you right now, their strength has already surpassed what this place can handle. They must be expelled. Lin Ru. Even if you glare at me, you still have to expel them. The rules are the rules. Lin Ru refused to budge. Big sister Lin Ru, I beg you, can you let me stay here for half a day? At that moment, Lu Jing suddenly struggled out of Yi Zichen's arms and knelt on the ground. Lu Jing, what are you doing? Yi Zichen tried to help her up while Cui 12 frowned. However, Lu Jing ignored him and continued to stare at Lin Ru with tears in her eyes. I beg you, the laws can be defied, but you are the master of the laws. But you're a master of the laws. You can definitely twist the laws for an instant. I don't want to stay here forever, I just need to stay here for half a day. Half a day. Is that okay? I promise I won't use any spiritual energy and won't cause you any trouble or trouble. What are you doing? The unyielding Lin Ru panicked a little when she saw Lu Jing kneeling on the ground. She did seem to be unreasonable, but she was just pretending. What's more, she disliked Yi Zichen's philandering personality, so she wanted to expel the girl as soon as possible. But now, hurry up and speak. Please, let me stay here for half a day. Although I'm the master of the laws, but you definitely can, I beg you. Lu Jing's tears continuously dripped down. Lu Jing's tears continuously dripped down. Seeing that, Yi Zichen couldn't bear it anymore, so he tried to pick Lu Jing up. What are you doing? We'll have plenty of time to see each other in the future. Why are you begging her? Even if you can't descend, I'll go to the God realm to find you. However, Lu Jing shook her head and looked at Lin Ru with a bright gaze. Whatever. Lin Ru, who didn't know what to do, turned around and left. Seriously, I can't offend her, but I can hide. Chapter 745. It's time. Nobody expected it to end like this, or rather, nobody expected it to begin like this. Lu Jing, who was kneeling on the ground, brushed away the dirt on her knees and wrapped her hand around Yi Zichen's arm out of habit. Her face was still stained with blood. The tears that had not been dried by the wind shone unusually brightly under the sunlight. Seeing that, Cui 12 couldn't help but turn his head. For me. Was it really worth it? Let's go. Lu Jing wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes and returned to her usual smile. I can't stay here with you for too long. I told big sister Lin Ru that I can only stay here for half a day. Lu Jing smiled sweetly as if she didn't care about what just happened. It was as if she hadn't knelt on the ground and begged. She only begged for half a day. Yi Zichen didn't want to ask anything else. Everything had already happened, so there was no need to bring it up. But he didn't understand. There was no need for that. It's not like we'll never meet again. Why did she have to do something like that? Yi Zichen couldn't help but speak up. What did I do? Lu Jing squinted her eyes. Just let it go. I just want to spend half a day peacefully with you without anyone bothering me. At that moment the Jade Emperor reached out his hand. Because of Lu Jing's kneeling just now, he was scared silly. She was the God Realm's envoy. He had personally witnessed how strong she was. Yet, she actually knelt just now. This scene was so shocking that he actually forgot what he had been thinking about on the way back. The ley line. After witnessing how strong the people of the God Realm and Demon Realm were, He wanted to ascend to the place of his dreams even more. He wanted to be like Sid of the demon realm and Lu Jing of the god realm, who could cause the heavens and earth to change color with just a wave of their hands. Of course, he could, but this was still a lower realm. There was a saying that one would rather be the head of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix. But a phoenix was a phoenix. Even if it was just a tail, it was still the tail of a phoenix. How could it be compared to the head of a chicken? His ambition had been there from the beginning to the end. What's more, was he going to be the tail of a phoenix his entire life? He didn't believe it. Before Yi Zichen could speak, Lu Jing's eyebrows were already knitted together. Someone actually dared to disturb her and Yi Zichen at a time like this. She felt very displeased. The Jade Emperor swallowed his saliva subconsciously when he sensed the unfriendly gaze. Envoy, do you still remember what I discussed with Brother Yi before I left? What is it that you can't talk about after I leave? Lu Qing shouted. All right. Yi Zichen reached out and rubbed her head, then smiled and pointed at the ley line. The ley line is in the direction of the Valley of Death. Go with the Great Emperor. He knew very well how eager the Jade Emperor was to break through, so he pointed out the location. The Jade Emperor knew the location of the Dragon Vein as soon as he descended to the lower realm. He didn't go there directly because he was afraid of Lu Qing. No matter what, this envoy seems to have a complicated relationship with Yi Zichen. Now that he had gotten the approval, how could he possibly hold back? Without even thinking, he headed toward the Dragon Vein. Brother Yi, I'll go too. The Great Emperor wasn't in as much of a hurry as the Jade Emperor. He only left after seeing Yi Zichen nod. I've heard of the wonders of the ley line in the God realm. I'll go take a look as well. I'll come and get you when it's time. Cui 12's words were clearly directed at Lu Qing. Lu Qing nodded with a smile and watched him leave. However, Yi Zichen frowned, but didn't say anything. Those annoying people are finally gone. It's just the two of us now. I'm telling you, I want you to stay with me for the next half a day. You can't go no matter who comes looking for you, okay? What? I'm asking you if you know. Lu Qing snorted proudly. I know. I promise you, my half a day is yours no matter who comes looking for me, Yi Zichen smiled. Okay. Half a day was actually very short. It was so short that they didn't even notice it. Yi Zichen kept his promise and gave all his time to Lu Qing. She followed him through the beautiful mountains of the immortal region and laughed with him. When they got a bit tired, they decided to stop at the top of a mountain. Lu Qing leaned her head against Yi Zichen's shoulder and watched the setting sun. Whoosh, little 17, it's time. We should go back. Cui 12's arrival shattered the warm atmosphere. Lu Qing, who had a red flower on her head, seemed to have woken up. When she saw Cui 12 behind her, the smile on her face suddenly turned into a heart-wrenching sadness. Time's up. Cui 12's heart ached, but he still nodded firmly. Lu Jing, who was at the edge of the cliff, stood up, then Yi Zichen also stood up. Lu Qing said helplessly, time passed so quickly. I thought it would be a long time. How long can half a day be? Hurry up and come with me. You only have 12 hours with that person, Cui 12 said coldly. Lu Qing nodded vigorously, then turned around with a smile. All right, let's go, Cui 12 said coldly. Time's up, I won't be accompanying you here. Time's up. Since when were they so punctual? Even if Lin Ru is the master of the law, it doesn't matter if it's earlier or later based on our relationship. If you want to stay here, I can go and talk to Lin Ru. No need, time's up. Lu Qing shook her head with a smile, then opened her arms. Can you hug me again? Yi Zichen pulled her into his arms, while Lu Qing, who was leaning against his chest, exerted more force, as if she was trying to fuse her into his body. Little 17, time, Cui 12 reminded her of the time, as if he was rushing her. Lu Qing, who was in Yi Zichen's arms, took a deep breath, then pushed Yi Zichen away. I won't be staying here any longer. You have to be good without me backing you up in the future. Don't keep messing with people you can't beat. As long as the people from above don't come, I can sweep through this place, okay? Yizichin smiled casually, then reached out to caress her hair. If you miss me, then come down and take a look. If it's not convenient, then wait for me to ascend to the God realm to find you. Sure, don't lie to me. Lu Qing smiled happily with her hands behind her back. Why would I lie to you? If you don't believe me, pinky promise? Yizichin reached out his finger as he spoke. Lu Qing's eyes instantly turned watery. She forced herself not to let the tears fall from the corner of her eyes and put her finger on it. Pinky promise. She wanted time to stop there so much, but time had to pass. Under Cui 12's urging once again, Lu Qing finally put down her hand and waved towards Yizichin with a smile, then slowly walked away. However, when she was halfway there, she suddenly shook her head. She'd already made up her mind, then yelled and ran towards Yizichin's direction. You're right. Chapter 746. He's my brother's friend. I knew it. Cui 12 had already predicted this would happen. He had knelt down just so he could hold on for the last half a day. At that moment, he knew it was impossible for her to follow him obediently. It was time for the older brother to step up. Cui 12 appeared beside Lu Jing in a flash and grabbed her arm, dragging her back with brute force. I don't want to go, Yizichin. Lu Qing cried her heart out. She desperately tried to break free, but the hand that was holding her was like a boulder, firmly holding her down. She doesn't want to leave. Why did you force her to leave? Yizichin reached out his hand to pull Lu Jing back as he looked at the crying Lu Jing. If you take another step forward, don't blame me for being ruthless. Cui 12 pulled Lu Jing behind him and threatened with a frown. At the same time, he kept dragging Lu Jing to the back, wanting to leave this place. I don't want to go, Lu Jing said. She's not leaving. From the very start, Yizichin felt that something was off. Their conversation had mentioned too much about time. If Lu Jing wanted to leave, he naturally wouldn't stop her. But now that she was crying and saying that she didn't want to leave, he would never let her leave. If Lu Qing doesn't want to go, no one can take her away. Yizichin shouted with a frown and stopped Cui 12. Yizichin reached out with his right hand towards Lu Jing's arm. Cui 12 raised his arm and slapped Yizichin's hand away. At the same time, he patted Yizichin's shoulder and pushed him back several meters. I've already warned you once. Cui 12 looked at Yizichin with a dark expression. He didn't use too much spiritual energy just now. He merely wanted Yizichin to retreat. Otherwise, given his strength as an Earth Supreme, how could Yizichin have possibly survived his attack? At this point, Yizichin had nothing else to say. All he had to do was make Lu Jing stay. As for the warning, his right fist suddenly kicked out. Cui 12, who was holding on to Lu Jing, took a few steps back and barely dodged the attack. The fist wind brushed past his face, leaving a bloodstain on his face. Seeing that his attack had missed, Yizichin decided to stick close to him. Cui 12's punches became more and more tricky. He had to prevent Lu Qing from running away and defend against the attacks at the same time. For some reason, a fire burned in Cui 12's heart. His spiritual power suddenly moved, and his fist swung out without hesitation. But as soon as he waved his hand, he realized that he couldn't do that. He forcefully retracted 30% of his strength, but even so, bang! Blood spurted out of his mouth. Aren't you guys looking down on me too much? At that moment, Lin Ru suddenly appeared at the edge of the cliff. She glared at Cui 12, who was still in the posture of throwing a punch. She also had Su Yan and Xia Kiki by her side, who immediately ran over to Yizichin's side. Zichin! Big brother Zichin! Almost at the same time, Lu Jing, who had been crying and shouting not to leave, also shouted with her pupils violently twitching. Yizichin! Cui 12 also looked at Yizichin's fist in shock, then at Yizichin, who was coughing up blood. What was he doing? He was obviously just going to take Lu Jing away. Why did he punch her just now? Even if he had already retracted 30% of his power, but brother Yi. Lu Jing took the chance to break free from Chui 12's grasp and ran over to Yi Zichen's side. Chui 12 also wanted to go up, but Lin Ru stopped him. I knew you guys wouldn't be so obedient. You're using the power of an Earth Supreme in my territory? You really don't take me, the new master of the laws, seriously. It seems I really do need to teach you a lesson, said Yang Qi. With that, Lin Ru rolled up her sleeves and prepared to attack. Lin Ru, forget it, Yi Zichen called out weakly. Yi Zichen called out weakly from behind her. Lin Ru stopped and looked at him in confusion, only to see him shake his head repeatedly. Then, he reached out and caressed Lu Jing's hair. If you don't want to leave, then stay here. It was just a simple sentence, but Lu Jing hesitated. Let me treat your injuries first. Yi Zichen's injuries stabilized after approximately 15 minutes. Little 17. Chui 12 frowned. Why are you urging her to leave? She doesn't want to leave, Yi Zichen glared at Lu Jing. Just as he was about to tell her to stay, he saw that Lu Jing had already stood up. Her eyes were still red, but she was no longer as hysterical as before. I'm sorry I caused you to get hurt. I don't want to leave. That's what I'm saying, but I must leave. Why? Yi Zichen questioned. Lu Jing merely smiled without saying anything. Turn around. Step forward. This time, she did not change her mind halfway like before. She quietly walked to Chui 12's side with her head lowered and nodded at him. A rainbow bridge was suddenly built on the top of the mountain. Let's go. Lu Jing, who stepped onto the rainbow bridge, kept her gaze on Yi Zichen. She could see the distress and confusion on his face, as well as the unsolvable worry. Indeed, Yi Zichen was very confused, but he believed that Lu Jing had her own reasons. She had turned back on impulse, but when the impulse subsided, she had her own thoughts. All Yi Zichen could do was watch her leave. As they got further and further away, Lu Jing could no longer hold back her emotions and started to cry. But for some reason, she suddenly had no idea why she was crying. Until she could no longer cry. She could only look at the man under the rainbow bridge with tears in her eyes as he waved at her. Hurry up and wipe away your tears. His Majesty is going to think that I bullied you when we get back. Lu Jing tilted her head and looked at Chui 12 with a frown as he handed her a handkerchief. Big Brother 12, why am I crying? It's so weird. Why am I suddenly crying? Chui 12's expression froze for a moment, then he smiled. Did you forget about a very moving story just now? What story? Why don't I remember it? Lu Jing blinked. Did you forget about a very moving story just now? A story. A long time ago, there was a girl. Chui 12 only finished the story after an entire hour. However, Lu Jing's expression remained cold the entire time. I actually cried over this sort of story? Then she shook her head and sneered. Love? What a joke. Chui 12's body trembled inexplicably when he heard the icy tone. After a long while, he let out a long sigh and caressed Lu Jing's head. All right, let's not bother about this. You've already cried, what's the point of saying this now? You're right, Lu Jing shrugged with a smile. Lu Jing smiled as she shrugged her shoulders. Soon after, she slightly furrowed her eyebrows and asked, Who was that person waving at us just now? Chapter 747. Half a year. With this period of rest, the residents of the immortal region gradually forgot about the invasion of the demons. The peddlers on the street once again shouted in the language he was most familiar with, and the residents also talked about their hottest gossip after tea. What's more, with the appearance of the ley line, cultivation was no longer as difficult as before. Smiles would always be present on their faces. Everything was as peaceful as before. At the same time, Yi Zichen's hidden injuries were completely healed after taking an attack from an Earth Supreme. However, he habitually went to a certain place during this time. At the peak of a mountain. the peak where he and Lu Jing parted ways. As he sat by the cliff and drank some liquor, he would look at his surroundings with a deep gaze. When he closed his eyes, he felt like he could still hear Lu Jing's heart-wrenching cries. What exactly is he hiding? This question popped up in his mind more than once. Lu Jing did go back, but this time, he felt that her return to the God realm was very different from before. Why were her eyes filled with tears and her expression filled with reluctance before she left? He couldn't understand. All he could do was wait for the right time to ascend to the God realm. Whoosh! A few whooshes sounded out in the sky. Yi Zichen put down the liquor in his hand, then saw Xueqi and Stone rush over. With the support of the ley line in the immortal region, the two brothers had already stepped into the sky immortal level. It could be said that the current sky immortal level was no longer an insurmountable obstacle for the lower three realms. The heavenly immortal realm was no longer a chasm that could not be crossed. Although breaking through to the heavenly immortal realm was still very difficult, it was no longer as rare as it was in the past. The overall strength of the immortal region had greatly increased in the past half a year. The outside world. It was now the golden age of the three realms. I knew you were definitely hiding here drinking. Stone descended from the sky with a laugh. Stone landed from the sky with a chuckle, then walked beside Yi Zichen, snatched the gourd of alcohol from Yi Zichen's hand and poured a mouthful. It's slightly better than erguotu. Stone wiped his mouth, then handed the jug back. Stone. In contrast to Stone, Xueqi had a good grasp of his and Yi Zichen's identities from the very beginning. Even though Yi Zichen had told him countless times to relax, he merely smiled. After that, it was the same as before. Yi Zichen tried to console him several times, but to no avail. Yi Zichen just let him be, but he treated him as an equal. Why did you come here to find me? Isn't the treasure tower busy? During this half a year, Yi Zichen also merged his leisure house into the treasure tower. After experiencing so much, he no longer placed much importance on power. Moreover, if he really needed power, the entire immortal region had to bow down to him. Coincidentally, Zuemo also needed helpers that she knew well, so Yi Zichen had everyone in the leisure house become Zuemo's subordinates to help her manage the treasure tower. Hearing that, Xueqi and Stone smiled at each other. Yi Zichen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows when he saw their ambiguous expressions. Zuemo can't be looking for me, right? The two of them were still smiling ambiguously. Everyone in the leisure house had long since realized that Yi Zichen and Zuemo's relationship wasn't ordinary, so they didn't object at all when Zuemo asked them to be her subordinates. From working for the boss to working for the lady boss, it didn't seem to make any difference to them. What's more, the lady boss was rather rich. The two of them remained silent. Yi Zichen could guess that Zuemo was looking for him, otherwise they wouldn't be acting like this. Since they wouldn't believe him even if he tried to explain, Yi Zichen simply shrugged. Where is she now? Lady boss, no, young lady is waiting for you at the Treasure Towers branch in Maple City. It seemed like Stone didn't choose his words carefully, but he forcefully changed it to young lady. However, Yi Zichen knew very well that Stone was purposely messing with him. Yi Zichen could tell from the smile on Xueqi's face. Yi Zichen rolled his eyes at the two of them, then leaped into the sky and left without waiting for them. Wait for us, bros. At the Treasure Towers branch in Maple City, Yi Zichen's personality was very obvious. He only used people who were close to him, and when his identity as the Yellow Emperor was revealed, the entire outer regions of the immortal region treated him with respect. Yi Zichen naturally wouldn't be careless with that. He directly used his connections to increase the treasure tower's strength threefold in half a year's time. Even though it was only a branch of the treasure tower, the endless number of merchants was no less than the treasure tower's headquarters. Yi Zichen had no choice but to wear a bamboo hat and walk into the treasure tower. Back then, all the cities in the immortal region had prepared to erect statues for him, but Yi Zichen was the one who organized it. Now that the entire immortal region knew of Yizichen's existence, everyone would definitely bow and greet him when they saw him. There were even fangirls who wanted to give birth to his children. Ahem, he couldn't stand that sort of scene. Because of that, Yizichen finally understood why some celebrities would cover themselves up so tightly when they went out. Couldn't be helped, the fans were just too passionate. Boss Zwo, I feel like we can discuss the price. A fat man dressed like a merchant smiled. A fat man dressed like a merchant grinned. Of course, he would never dare to take advantage of her. Ignoring the fact that Zwo was the future successor of the treasure tower, just the man behind her, everyone said that the Yellow Emperor was Zwo's man. Boss Lee, you should know that the treasure tower has always been honest, and has never pressured us. Although the treasure tower doesn't do one-off deals, the price you're offering is truly too high. At that moment, Zwo was wearing a simple dress, which perfectly showcased her alluring figure. She was in the middle of a huge business deal, and she had been following the merchant in front of her for a long time. It was a crucial moment in the negotiation. At that moment, she saw a man in a bamboo hat wave his hand towards her. Zwo's eyes instantly brightened, then she turned towards the boss in front of her. Boss Lee, feel free to look around. Boss Lee, you can take a look around here. Excuse me. Zwo definitely wouldn't have left a big client hanging like that in the past. She would always treat them with respect regardless of whether it was a big client or a small one, but this time, you're here. Why are you wearing a bamboo hat? Zwo ran over with a smile. The man took off his bamboo hat and smiled wryly. I can't help it. It can't be helped. Do you know how famous I am now? When the boss saw the man's face, he no longer dared to show a dark expression. F***ck, I am indeed famous in Maple City, but compared to the reincarnation of the Yellow Emperor, the savior of the three realms, I'm nothing. Thus, he obediently followed Zwo's words and wandered around. However, he couldn't help but mutter in his heart. Since the rumors are actually true, then shouldn't I try to curry favor with her and lower the price a bit? Then, he felt his heart ache a bit. Merchants only cared about profit, so he would definitely be willing to raise the price if he was asked to. However, asking him to bargain was the same as cutting his own flesh. Chapter 748. Chapter 748. Spatial collapse within the VIP reception room. The attendant left the tea behind, then left the room. When the door closed, Yizichen raised his eyebrows with a smile. Long time no see. You seem to be getting better and better at managing the future successor of the treasure tower? So you do know that we haven't seen each other for a long time. If I didn't tell Xueqi and company to go and find you, would you have forgotten about me? Zwo glared at him, then pursed her lips, but still poured him a cup of tea. A wry smile appeared on Yizichen's face, then he intentionally changed the topic. I saw that you were discussing business just now. Is it fine to just leave him there? This again. Zwo muttered to herself, then glared at him in annoyance. She sighed silently when she saw Yizichen's silly smile, then replied casually, It's not a big client. What's more, the details are still up for discussion. Even if I stayed there, we wouldn't be able to come to a conclusion in a short amount of time, so it's better to let him think about it. Just going along with him might not be the best solution. Leaving him hanging for a bit might be more effective. Alright, I'm not as professional as you in business management. Yizichen shrugged with a smile. I can tell that the treasure tower is getting better and better in the immortal region. Isn't that all thanks to you, great deity? It's because we're so close. All of a sudden, the atmosphere of the conversation became much more relaxed. Oh yeah, you definitely have something to say to me, right? Yizichen couldn't help but speak up after chatting about some irrelevant topics. Don't tell me that you can't find me if you don't have anything to say. No matter what, I know that you definitely have something to discuss with me since you told Xueqi and Brotherstone to find me. You're so smart. Zwo rolled her eyes. Then, she said, I want to report to you about my work. I want to report my work to you. With the heavenly court technicians you provided for us, we should be able to see the finished product in 3 days. The invasion of the demons and the avoidance of the immortal region caused Yi Zichen to notice the difference in combat strength. The people of the immortal region, or rather, the people of the 3 realms, were much weaker than the demons. The people of the immortal region, or perhaps the 3 realms, had a great disparity between them and the demons. Regardless of peak strength, the disparity between the middle and high levels of strength was just too great. But in reality, it was the most ordinary soldiers that could be affected and occupied. In order to bridge the gap between them, Yi Zichen had the heavenly court and the immortal region produce gunpowder together. Gunpowder might not pose much of a threat to sky immortals and above, but it was quite useful to earth immortals and human immortals. When the demon race invaded, it was because the heavenly court didn't manufacture gunpowder. If they had gunpowder at that time, he would definitely blow them up until not a single one of them was left. Now that the treasure tower had started to research, this was definitely good news for the people of the immortal region. That's great, but remember to be careful when storing it. Don't underestimate it. It has enough explosives, and its destructive power is enough to destroy heaven and earth. I will remind them of this when the time comes. Zuomo nodded. Then, her expression changed slightly. She bit her lips and said, But I actually came to talk to you about something else. Go ahead, Yi Zichen raised his eyebrows. Actually, bang. Yi Zichen, who was holding a cup of tea, slammed it onto the table. The sudden scene shocked Zuomo. Then she saw Yi Zichen stand up from the chair with a frown. What happened? Young lady, there's someone outside. Hey, why did you barge in? The attendant outside exclaimed. Not long later, the door was pushed open, and Lin Ru swept her gaze across Zuomo and Yi Zichen with a frown. You're rather carefree. What happened? I felt a strange fluctuation of energy just now. It was very intense. Yi Zichen ignored her words, which were either mocking or teasing, and frowned. The dimension of your lair shattered. Susu told me to come and get you back to see what's going on. Seriously, I'm a master of the law, and I actually have to run errands for you little mortals. Lin Ru, who was talking about serious matters at the start, immediately started to retort. However, Yi Zichen's expression drastically changed when he heard that. He didn't have any time to hesitate, and immediately rushed out of the treasure tower. Hey, Lin Ru looked at him with a dumbfounded expression. What was this brat doing? He was actually leaving her hanging. Lin Ru took a few deep breaths to suppress her anger. She wrinkled her nose at Zuomo, then hurriedly left the room. Zuoliang, who had just arrived at the treasure tower, coincidentally saw the frantic Yi Zichen. He wanted to greet him, but noticed that Yi Zichen completely ignored him. Just as they were about to reach Zuomo's VIP room, they saw another woman walk out. His momentum was overbearing. What was going on? When Lin Ru disappeared at the top of the stairs, he came back to his senses and walked into the room, raising his eyebrows. Sis, I just saw Big Brother Yi, but he seemed to be in a hurry to leave. Also, who was that woman just now? Could it be Catch my ass? Zuomo rolled her eyes at him, then frowned and asked, Why are you here? Zuoliang's expression turned serious as well, and he spoke with a serious expression. The clan elders asked me to bring you back. So early? Isn't it supposed to be half a month later? Zuomo frowned, then nodded. Alright, I got it. I'll make some arrangements here before returning. I want to see what else they can do. What's going on? Why did the space suddenly shatter? What's going on? On a plain about 100 miles away from Maple City, a group of people raised their heads and looked at the constantly shattering space in the sky. It wasn't the 3 realms that collapsed, but the subdimension left behind by the white-robed man. They had all safely retreated the moment the space collapsed. Although there were no casualties, it was all too sudden. Especially when they were walking on the road at that time, they suddenly stepped on empty air and discovered that the ground had disappeared. Under such circumstances, they were more or less shocked. Whoosh! Yizichin stepped through the air and hurried back. When everyone saw him, they all bowed to him. The women beside him also came over. Xiao Yumei was holding Lil Tiantian's hand. "Daddy!" Tiantian burst into tears when she saw Yizichin. She had been playing with the winged dragon, Lil Lan, when the space collapsed. As she ran, the ground beneath her feet suddenly became empty, causing her to fall from the sky. If it wasn't for Lil Lan catching her, she might have fallen to her death. Yizichin hugged Tiantian tightly and caressed her hair. At the same time, he looked towards the space with a frown. The space collapsed. However, he knew very well that the only way to make the subdimension collapse was. Chapter 749. God Realm. The God Realm. The Four-Direction Palace. Cui 12 and Lu Qing stood side by side in the main hall. They had just received a summons from His Majesty to wait here. Half a year. It had been half a year since they returned from the immortal region. For the God Realm, which had a long history, half a year was but a blink of an eye. Everything in the God Realm was still operating normally, except for Lu Qing. After eating that pill, Lu Qing's personality had changed drastically. She was no longer smiling adorably like before. She became distant from everyone. Even though her spirit art was of the fire element, she was like a frozen block of ice. She was so cold that it sent chills down people's spines. She even made people feel that she was unreasonable. The two who were once best friends in the Four-Direction Palace were now here. Cui 12 also kept his distance from Lu Qing. Firstly, Lu Qing didn't like people being too close to her. Secondly, he couldn't stand the coldness emanating from her bones. A shadow passed through the middle of the two of them and greeted the person in front of them. "Your Majesty." Not long after, a handsome middle-aged man appeared on the throne. Although his clothes were a little messy at the moment, his hair was meticulously combed. Cui 12 couldn't help but sneak a peek. He had never seen His Majesty like this since he came to the God Realm. Especially the dragon robe he was wearing, that was his most precious treasure, but it was now ruined beyond recognition. Bai-an nodded indifferently on the throne. He could tell from his brows that he was a little tired. He rubbed the jade ring on his left thumb with his right hand as he looked at Cui 12 and Lu Qing with a sharp gaze. "Do you know why I called you here? Your Majesty, please punish me." As soon as Lao Ai finished speaking, Lu Qing knelt on the ground with a cold expression on her face. She placed her hands on both sides of her legs and kowtowed. Bai-an on the throne smiled and said, "What crime?" Cui 12 became nervous as well. Even though they had rehearsed this scene countless times over the past half a year, he was still worried that Lu Qing, who was growing colder and colder, would ignore everything he had said. Lu Jing, who was kneeling on one knee, raised her head and looked straight into Tao Wu's eyes. "Your Majesty, forgive me for my incompetence for not retrieving the item you entrusted to me." "Really?" Bai-an nodded indifferently, but even so, Cui 12 and Lu Jing were unable to tell what he was thinking at the moment. Not being able to figure it out was their greatest fear of Bai. Cui 12 almost couldn't breathe due to the oppressive atmosphere, but Lu Qing didn't seem to feel anything. She continued to stare straight into Bai-an's eyes as she replied. "The first place this subordinate rushed to is the lower realm's heavenly court. Among the three realms, the heavenly court is considered to be closer to our God realm, and its power is also stronger. At that time, I wanted to borrow the power of the heavenly court to help me retrieve the Xianyuan sword as soon as possible and hand it over to His Majesty. Everything went according to plan until one day, I could no longer sense the Xianyuan sword. It was as if someone was deliberately hiding this artifact. At that time, I tried to use my spiritual power to break it. Forgive me for my incompetence, but I was unable to do so. After that, I tried the stupidest method of finding a needle in a haystack, but the result was still barely satisfactory. No matter what, I did not complete my mission. Please punish me, Your Majesty. Everything was a matter of fact, and there was no excuse for himself in between. Lu Jing was just that righteous. She said those 2 sentences with force. Chui 12 grew anxious as he listened. This was not what they had rehearsed before. Excuse me. Why can't I excuse myself? Seeing Lu Jing lower her head after saying those 2 sentences, Chui 12 hurriedly spoke up. Your Majesty, actually. All right, I know all of this. At that moment, Bai-en on the throne waved his hand. There was actually a hint of a smile on his face. This king actually sensed this a long time ago. The method that 17 mentioned to conceal the heavenly secrets is the sky-shrouding formation. It's a good idea to break the formation, but the person who set it up is very powerful. Even I can't guarantee that I can break it. Chui 12's expression lit up, but Bai-en spoke up again. You can avoid death, but you can't escape punishment. This king didn't allow you to descend. You were the one who gave the order to do so. Now that you've failed your mission, the servants will definitely be unhappy if this king doesn't punish you. Your punishment is to face the wall in the ice pool. Go. At the ice pool. Chui 12 instantly panicked when he heard the punishment. That's the ice pool. Even a Sky Supreme with ice attribute cultivation techniques would not be able to resist the cold. Now, he actually wanted Lu Jing to go to the chilling ice pool. Wasn't that asking for her life? This subordinate accepts his punishment. Lu Jing did not refute this result. She stood up expressionlessly and walked out of the hall without the slightest hesitation. Chui 12 suddenly felt conflicted as he watched her leave the hall. In terms of relationship, he was closer to Lu Jing. Now that Lu Jing was about to go to the ice pool, he hesitated. Should I keep my promise to Lu Jing and expose Yi Zichen? 12. Just as he hesitated, Bai-en spoke up on the throne. Chui 12 quickly calmed himself down. This subordinate is here. 17 took the love-breaking pill, right? Yes. Why? Bai-en squinted his eyes. Bai-en's gaze was extremely pressuring to Chui 12. He comforted himself several times in his heart, then clenched his teeth. 17 wanted to search for the Xianyuan sword in the lower realms, but we received news that the demon realm had sent out a special envoy. Little 17 and I went to the god realm to kill the envoy just in case. Due to some errors in the information, the envoy was of the saint level. Little 17 and I were no match for him, so Little 17 took the love-breaking pill to save me. You just said that you went directly to the demon realm to kill the envoy? Yes. Bang. Bai-en's aura suddenly surged, sending Chui 12 flying. Chui 12 slammed into a pillar as blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. Nonsense. Is the demon realm somewhere you can go? You actually dared to go to the demon realm to kill the envoy. It's fine if you went, but you actually brought 17 with you. Ahem. If 17 died, would you be able to bear the responsibility? In his rage, Lao Ai kept slapping the armrest of his chair and coughed violently as he spoke. No, he was coughing up blood. Ahem. Chui 12 raised his eyebrows when he saw the purplish-red blood on his handkerchief. Chapter 750. Chapter 750. Prophecy. Even Chui 12 didn't quite believe it when he said it. Your Majesty. Injured? The Four-Direction Palace was located in the center of the 9 regions of the God Realm. It was the most powerful region in the God Realm partly because of its geographical advantage, but more importantly Bai-en. Why the demons didn't dare to attack the God Realm even though they were eyeing it, and why the shamans didn't dare to do anything to the Four-Direction Palace. The title of the strongest in the God Realm wasn't just for show. Yet, such a powerful person was coughing up blood at a time like this. However, when Chui 12 said it, he knew that he had made a mistake. Bai-en looked at Chui 12 with a piercing gaze. In that instant, Chui 12 felt as if he had fallen into a bottomless pit of ice. He couldn't help but shiver. Bang! Without any hesitation, Chui 12 knelt on the ground. Your Majesty, I didn't see anything. He had no choice but to beg for mercy, even though he was now the Highness of the Four-Direction Palace. He was an existence that stood above billions of people. However, he knew very well that his life would never belong to him. If Bayan wanted to take his life, he only needed to say the word. Or rather, he only needed to think about it. Time ticked by. Chui 12 knelt on the ground. His forehead was drenched in sweat. His heart was pounding, and his eyes were filled with fear. Right now, he only had one thought in his mind: why did he say those words back then? 12. After a long time, a cold voice came from within the palace. Chui 12 looked up in fear, only to find that Bayan had already walked in front of him. Pressure. This strong sense of oppression almost caused his heart to stop beating. He was about to suffocate, but he still trembled as he held on to that faint hope to respond. Yes, Your Majesty. You've been with me for almost 100 years, right? Yes, Chui 12 replied. To be honest, I did have high hopes for you to become the Four-Direction Palace's Highness. You're skilled in prophecy. Only the northernmost region has a prophecy god. It's also because of him that the central region is in an awkward position. They might be number one, but with the prophecy god's northernmost region, they aren't any weaker than us. Bayan's gaze never left Chui 12's. Under this gaze, Chui 12 had long since lost the ability to think. But after so many years, you've disappointed me more and more. However, I'll give you a chance. If you can predict whether I'll kill you or leave you alive, I'll spare your life. It might seem contradictory, but Chui 12 couldn't give a direct answer. In this passage, Lao AI had already given a definition, but could he really directly predict that there would be fate? Bayan could. After taking a few deep breaths, Bayan 12. It was exhausting his blood and sweat to deduce. Countless possibilities flashed through his mind. Gradually, the corners of his eyes and ears began to bleed. It was true that he had the gift of prophecy, but prophesying his future also involved Swan and I. With his current strength, it was impossible for him to predict it. During this time, Bayan just watched quietly, waiting for the result of his deduction. At that moment, an elder holding a book suddenly appeared behind Chui 12, who had a pained expression on his face. When he saw the old man, Bayan smiled. Your Majesty! You got a result? Bayan chuckled. You will kill me, but you will revive me after I die and let the First Highness's god clone take over my body. Leave. Then, Your Majesty, do I need to take the poison half a day later? What do you think? Bayan replied expressionlessly. The dimension shattered. Yi Zichen stared at the speed of the dimension shattering. He didn't want to believe that something had happened to the white-robed man. He wanted to judge whether the white-robed man was alive or not through the speed and degree of the dimension shattering. The result was not good. Brother Yi, what do you think? Flame Emperor couldn't make up his mind, so he looked towards Yi Zichen. No matter what, the white-robed man was the closest to Yi Zichen. Have the people in the space been evacuated? Yi Zichen asked instead of answering. They all came out. City Lord Lin of the 100 Flowers City frowned. There weren't that many people in the dimension. As soon as it shattered, we all retreated out of it. But there are still a lot of resources that haven't been moved out. There's nothing to worry about resources, right? The resources will naturally fall down when the dimension shatters. But since we haven't seen any resources for so long, it can only be said that the dimension is self-destructing. I believe everyone understands what self-destruction means. Yi Zichen's expression darkened. He didn't want to mention it in order to prevent others from noticing, but he looked towards Zhao Zizhao. I didn't expect him to be here as well. Just what is he planning? Yi Zichen looked at Zhao Zizhao indifferently. When the others noticed Yi Zichen's gaze, they all looked towards the two of them. Emperor Yi, Zizhao doesn't have any bad intentions. He's just a straightforward person who says whatever he wants to say. During the past 6 months, Lin Shiha's relationship with Zhao Zizhao had improved. It was said that a woman's IQ was in the negatives when they were in love. She was the only one who spoke up for Zhao Zizhao. Yi Zichen laughed inexplicably. He couldn't help but nod, a hint of playfulness in his eyes. I must announce that the dimension's self-destruction will indeed destroy everything within it. But this absolutely isn't the creator of the dimension. It's possible that he's severely injured and needs to withdraw his spiritual energy to recover. I'm sure everyone knows that. Emperor Yi, you're wrong. HM? When he saw Zhao Zizhao jump in again, Yi Zichen's smile grew even wider. Don't say anything. I know what you're trying to say. If the master of the dimension is seriously injured and needs to withdraw his spiritual energy, causing the dimension to self-destruct, then even if he does, he won't be able to recover, right? Just now, City Lord Lin spoke up for you. I thought you were just being straightforward, but now, why are you so fixated on the death of the master of the dimension? I'm just stating the facts. What's wrong with that? Zizhao. Lin Shiha furrowed her brows and shouted. At the same time, she tugged at him. How forceful! Yi Zichen pursed his lips into a smile, then looked at Zhao Zizhao, who was standing to the side with a similarly playful expression. Did you eat something bad yesterday? Why are you jumping out now? Chapter 751. A pawn that can be used. The surrounding people looked at Yi Zichen and Zhao Zizhao in confusion. Panicked. What exactly is he talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. Yi Zichen could clearly see the panic in Zhao Zizhao's eyes. He smiled faintly and looked at him with a playful look in his eyes. You know very well, don't you? Back when great Emperor Yonghe and company betrayed the Three Realms, Yi Zichen and company defeated them, and Qiu Hai saved them. Yi Zichen had always suspected that there were still demons among the group of people who'd stayed behind. He did not go out to search for them openly, he merely paid attention to a few people in secret. Fortunately, Zhao Zizhao was one of them. It could be said that Zhao Zizhao's actions were very likable, but sometimes it was very strange. For example, he would inexplicably go to a deserted place and take out a piece of jade slip. Yi Zichen did not say anything after noticing all this. He merely paid attention to Zhao Zizhao in silence. He wanted to see what he would do in the future. But I have to say, Zhao Zizhao's actions are rather retarded. I feel like I didn't bring my brain with me. The fact that Zhao Zizhao kept a close eye on the white-robed man's life didn't affect the Three Realms at all. So what if the white-robed man really died? With the master of the law around, would the people from above still dare to do as they please? Or was the white-robed man's death a signal for the demons to invade? If that's the case, then there's even less to worry about. The Three Realms' strength was far greater than before with the support of the ley line. Yi Zichen could say without any hesitation that if the demons dared to come, they would definitely not be able to return. Be reasonable, you're in too much of a rush. You're so anxious that I can't help but wonder if you have a brain. Never mind, I don't want to talk to you anymore. If the dimension shatters, then so be it. Everyone, return to your homes. This matter is over. With that, Yi Zichen turned around and left. He did not say everything out loud. Others might not know what he was talking about, but Zhao Zizhao definitely knew better than anyone else. He was indeed a hidden pawn of the demons, but that didn't mean that Yi Zichen couldn't use it. Tisk, tsk. Don't disappoint me. Yi Zichen's departure left countless questions in everyone's hearts. Everyone looked at Zhao Zizhao in bewilderment, hoping to glean some information from him. Shiha, let's go. Zhao Zizhao ignored everyone's gazes. He grabbed Lin Shiha's arm and led her outside. He must have known. On the way back, Yi Zichen's meaningful smile lingered in Zhao Zizhao's head. How did he know? Zhao Zizhao's emotions were a mess. He couldn't understand why Yi Zichen had already suspected him but hadn't pointed it out. Did they not want to cause panic? However, in the current situation, coupled with Yi Zichen's influence, They had no choice but to cooperate. No matter how brilliant his rebuttal was, the crowd would definitely side with Yi Zichen. Zijao, why did you say those words just now? After they left, Lin Shihe couldn't help but say, I almost couldn't bear to listen to what you just said. Weren't you deliberately trying to stir up trouble? I really did say too much just now, said Zhao Zijao apologetically. I don't know why, but I just can't stand the sight of that kid. It's my fault, my fault. I shouldn't have said that. Seriously? Lin Shihe shook her head. She knew that Zhao Zijao, under his little brother's influence, didn't view Yi Zichen as particularly friendly. His explanation just now wasn't impossible. She could only sigh and shake her head. No matter what, he's the Yellow Emperor's reincarnation. If you're unhappy, just keep it to yourself. Don't make trouble for yourself. I don't want you to piss him off. It'll be bad for you. Got it. I'll definitely be careful in the future. Zhao Zijao smiled and pulled Lin Shihe into his arms. The instant he did, Lin Shihe's cheeks flushed red. She said shyly, When do you think we'll get married? Let's wait a little longer. I want to wait until everything settles down, then I'll gloriously marry you. Zhao Zijao smiled warmly, but no one knew that his brows had become incomparably gloomy. It was about time he contacted his people. Brother Yi. Flame Emperor immediately caught up to Yi Zichen the moment he stepped into Maple City. What is it? You're not going to care about them anymore. What else is there to care about? Can I care about the shattered space even if I want to? Yi Zichen rolled his eyes at Flame Emperor, then covered his face and walked forward. Flame Emperor followed closely behind him. Seeing that they were about to reach the longevity courtyard, Yi Zichen finally couldn't help but turn around speechlessly. I already said that I'm not going to care anymore. Why are you still following me? Are you very free? About the things you said just now, what did I say? Tell me the truth. Is that person someone from the demon realm? I didn't think that there would actually be someone who understood. Yi Zichen couldn't help but shake his head with a smile. However, he didn't confirm Flame Emperor's words. I don't understand what you're talking about. How can you not, Ding Dong? Ding Dong. Before Flame Emperor could finish, the phone in Yi Zichen's pocket started to ring with notifications. Yi Zichen frowned. To be honest, he wanted to turn off his phone more than once. It's way too annoying. It's been half a year. The Jade Emperor went to the ley line to break through, but threw all of the Heavenly Court's mess onto Yi Zichen. Yi Zichen didn't mind it too much at the start, but as time went on, he got really annoyed. For some reason, he felt a bit of admiration towards the Jade Emperor. The people in the Heavenly Court truly had too many things to deal with. Every few days they would look for him to consult about this and that. He had already said that he would give them full responsibility, but this group of fellows still kept bothering him. The Jade Emperor is truly annoying. The Jade Emperor said that he wouldn't even need a month to break through to the supreme level, but it's already been half a year. What's more, I'm someone from the immortal region. I don't even want to care about the crap in the immortal region, but now I actually have to take care of the crap in the Heavenly Court. I really want to quit, but no matter what, I did promise the Jade Emperor. He reluctantly took out his phone from his pocket and glanced at the screen with drooping eyelids. His expression instantly changed. Did you hear what I said just now? Flame Emperor frowned. When he noticed Yi Zichen's expression, he couldn't help but ask, What happened? Nothing, Yi Zichen frowned. Then he raised his eyebrows towards Flame Emperor. I'm going to the Heavenly Court now. I'm going to the Heavenly Court now. Do you want to come with me? Chapter 752. Banquet at Hongmen Breakthrough? Indeed. That was indeed the case. After half a year of silence, the Heavenly Court suddenly became active. The Jade Emperor even invited you to the Cloudy Palace of the Golden Arches for a meeting. After that, he directly announced that all the deities had gathered at the Immortality Peach Garden and said that there was something important to announce. Based on past experience, It should be a joyous occasion if there was an announcement about gathering at the Immortality Peach Garden. Although they didn't know what the joyous occasion was, the deities in the heavenly court all panicked. Gift. They didn't know how to prepare gifts. Some of the great immortals were thinking that they should just stay at home and not go if they really couldn't do it. However, the Jade Emperor made 6 announcements in the group. The gist of it was that whoever doesn't come can forget about staying in the heavenly court. With no other choice, the deities could only obediently hurry towards the Immortality Peach Garden. When they met other deities along the way, they would ask each other what gifts they had brought. At the South Heaven's Gate, Flame Emperor's expression was very solemn on the way. The Jade Emperor's breakthrough was definitely not good news for the immortal region. Although the lower 3 realms were on good terms with each other now, the conflict would not stop just like that. Don't always look so bitter. Even if the Jade Emperor broke through, he definitely won't do anything to the immortal region. Yizichin couldn't help but shake his head with a smile. Since the Jade Emperor broke through, he would definitely ascend to the God realm as quickly as possible given how desperate he was for it. He definitely wouldn't stay in the mortal realm. What's more, the fact that the Jade Emperor was able to break through was mostly due to Yizichin. The Jade Emperor wouldn't do anything to the immortal region out of respect for Yizichin. What's more, Yizichin had a trump card. Linru. Yizichin patted Flame Emperor's shoulder, then ran towards the South Heaven's Gate. Coincidentally, this time around, it was the same group of people who were on guard duty with him last time. Chief Steward Yi. The vice-captain quickly ran over when he saw Yizichin. The fact that he was able to become vice-captain was largely due to Yizichin's efforts. Your guards again? Why don't I see you, Captain? Oh yeah, you won't stop me from going in, right? Don't make fun of me. The vice-captain smiled bitterly. The Jade Emperor summoned all the immortals to the Immortal Peach Garden. He said that he had something to announce. You must have come for this matter, right? I won't waste any more of your time here. Hurry up and go. All right, I'll go in then. Let them pass. The vice-captain ordered the guards behind him. The guards blocking the southern heavenly gate all retreated to the side. They were all indebted to Yizichin, so even if the vice-captain didn't let them in, the guards definitely wouldn't stop them. It seems like the Jade Emperor's breakthrough has been confirmed. Yizichin couldn't help but raise his eyebrows when he walked through the South Heaven's Gate. The message he received before coming was from the Jade Emperor. The message was simple. 2 sentences. I broke through. Quickly come to the heavenly court. Yizichin had his suspicions at the time, but since he'd gone out to buy it with such fanfare, there was no way he could be wrong. He just didn't know if the great sacred emperor equaling heaven, who was with him, had also broken through to become a sovereign. When Yizichin arrived at the Immortality Peach Garden, it was just as the vice-captain had said. Almost all of the deities in the heavenly court were present. Both the lower and higher level deities pretty much filled up the entire Jade Lake. Yizichin's arrival also caused the deities to greet him warmly. Of course, most of them merely raised their cups and looked at him from afar. Only the higher level deities were able to walk up to him. Sky Sovereign actually came as well. Chijiao Immortal walked over barefooted. Barefooted, bare-chested and bare-chested, barefooted Great Immortal walked over. He could be considered an anomaly in the Buddhist region. Instead of staying in the Western Buddhist region, he was always following the ghosts and immortals of the celestial heavens. How could I not come? The Jade Emperor gave a death order. If I didn't come, then wouldn't there be trouble? Yizichin said half-jokingly. Haha, but Sky Sovereign, do you know what the Jade Emperor is doing? How would I know? Yizichin shrugged helplessly. You deities in the heavenly court don't even know, so how would someone like me, who is always in the lower realm, know? Sky Sovereign, that's not right. Chijiao Immortal raised his eyebrows. Chijiao Immortal raised his eyebrows. You definitely know some insider information. Spill it to me. Yizichin merely smiled. At that moment, Yang Jian, god of thunder, and the other military officials walked in. When they saw Yi Zichen, they all walked over with smiles. "Bro, you came as well." Yi Zichen, who turned around, was stunned. He looked at Yang Jian's attire in shock, and did not reply immediately. A tuxedo. It was once the most common attire for banquets in the modern realm, but when he looked at the current heavenly court, it was a replica of the modern realm. All of a sudden, Yi Zichen really did miss his life in the modern realm. However, as time passed, his strength continued to rise. He had wanted to increase his strength and return to the modern realm as soon as possible, but the reality was that he was getting further and further away from the modern realm. For example, the Jade Emperor's ascension. He was definitely going to ascend to the God realm. If he were to ascend after breaking through, then when would he be able to return to the modern realm and live the life that he once hated the most, but now missed the most? "Bro, here." Yi Zichen returned to his senses under Yang Jian's call. He patted Yang Jian's shoulder with a smile and nodded. "This tuxedo looks rather cool on you." "Then look, your bro, I am the #1 Adonis in the heavenly court," Yang Jian replied without any hint of modesty. "I am." Neza, who was wearing a little suit, wrinkled his nose. "Don't fight with me. I'm the big Adonis and you're the little Adonis," said Yang Jian. "Then your grandpa's son is a bit unhappy." At that moment, the Monkey King's arrogant laughter sounded out in the sky. The smile on Yang Jian's face instantly disappeared when he heard the monkey's words. He watched with a dark expression as the great sage, who was wearing his Monkey King attire, descended from the sky. "Monkey, Laozi has tolerated you for a long time. Then let's spar?" The great sage took out his Jingu Bang without any hesitation. "Stop messing around." Yi Zichen couldn't help but facepalm when he saw the two of them start fighting again. These two clearly care about each other, so why are they fighting whenever they see each other? The two of them tried everything they could to persuade them to stop fighting, but they were still staring at each other, neither willing to give in to the other. The surrounding deities were already used to it. At that moment, an auspicious cloud floated over, and a man beside the Jade Emperor descended from the sky. "Greetings, Jade Emperor." All the deities kowtowed. Only Yi Zichen merely nodded towards him with a smile. The Jade Emperor smiled warmly and told everyone to dispense with the formalities, then walked in front of Yi Zichen. "It's all thanks to Brother Yi. Otherwise, I don't know when I would be able to reach this stage." Chapter 753. "I don't trust you." The sudden change in the Jade Emperor's expression caused the smiles of the surrounding deities to freeze. They looked at the gloomy Jade Emperor in shock, then looked at Yi Zichen, who was still smiling. All of a sudden, they were unsure of what to do. "Jade Emperor, what are you doing?" Flame Emperor immediately stood up and glared at the Jade Emperor with an equally unfriendly expression. Ever since he arrived, his heart had been racing. He felt that this might be a trap, and that something like that might happen. Yi Zichen was extremely important to the immortal region. "Even if I die here, I definitely can't let anything happen to Yi Zichen. You weren't my match 10,000 years ago. Flame Emperor, do you really think you can threaten me now?" The aura in the surroundings froze. The Jade Emperor, who stood in front of Flame Emperor, was like a ferocious beast that pressured him. He really broke through. The Flame Emperor, who was blocking in front, thought to himself. This feeling was definitely right. He took that step. All right. At that moment, Yi Zichen patted Flame Emperor's shoulder, then walked out from behind him. His expression was completely calm as he smiled towards the Jade Emperor. "Yang Jian, what are you thinking? Hurry up and take down Yi Zichen." The gloomy Jade Emperor shouted. Yang Jian, who had received the order, had a solemn expression on his face, but his body did not move. "Are you going against orders? Lizenzi, go." Lizenzi merely bit his lips, but did not step forward. All right, the Jade Emperor nodded darkly. The Jade Emperor nodded darkly and said, "Good," 3 times in a row. His gaze swept across the surrounding immortals and he snorted. If I told you to take him down, would you all be like them? The deities remained silent, while the other lower-level deities also looked over. All of them were shocked when they heard that the Jade Emperor wanted to take down Yi Zichen. They did not understand why the Jade Emperor would make such a decision. Sky Sovereign Ming Ming was the most trusted person by the Jade Emperor's side, and the Grand Steward of the Heavenly Court. He was below one deity, but above 10,000 deities. But now, he wanted to detain the Celestial Venerable. Could it be that the Celestial Venerable had offended the Jade Emperor in some way, just like Tai Bai jinxing? Most of the deities would stand on Yi Zichen's side if they were asked to take sides. It wasn't that Yi Zichen was good, it was just that the Jade Emperor hadn't done anything for the Heavenly Court in recent years. Of course, they could only mutter in their hearts, and did not dare to say it out loud. Wow, I really raised a group of loyal immortals. The Jade Emperor sneered and looked at the immortals around him, including the lower immortals outside. The immortals remained silent, but old Lord Taishang stood up. Jade Emperor, I would like to ask why you want to capture the Heavenly Venerables. Under such circumstances, the other immortals remained silent. However, old Lord Taishang was one of the three pure ones, so there was naturally no problem for him to speak at this time. Do I need a reason to capture someone now? Don't forget, I'm the owner of this place. Three pure ones, I respect you because the three pure ones don't want to bicker with you. I'll say that I want to capture him right now. Are you going to listen or not? The Jade Emperor looked at old Lord Taishang coldly. It was clear that he was truly angered. Still, the immortals did not move. The Jade Emperor smiled sadly and shook his head when he saw the expressions of the surrounding immortals. I've managed the Heavenly Court for several 100,000 years. I didn't think that it would be so difficult for you to capture an outsider. I truly am the Jade Emperor. Fine, since you all want to stand on his side, then I'll just suppress all of you. I don't want the Heavenly Court anymore. Boom. The aura of a Supreme instantly swept through the entire Jade Lake. The Jade Emperor seemed to be possessed as his sleeves fluttered with spiritual energy as he glared at the surrounding immortals with bloodshot eyes. The surrounding immortals also had solemn expressions as they pondered over whether they should resist or not. Enough. Yi Zichen, who maintained his smile, shook his head, then looked at the Jade Emperor in front of him. He looked at the Jade Emperor. Since I'm the one you want, then I'll come with you. You must be in a really bad spot right now. I'll give you a way out, but it's up to you whether you want it or not. Alright. The Jade Emperor, who was threatening to suppress all the immortals, suddenly retracted his aura. He turned around and walked out of the Jade Lake without any hesitation. Yi Zichen also followed him. Brother Yi. Flame Emperor was a bit worried. Yi Zichen merely gave him a reassuring look, then smiled towards the surrounding immortals. Go do what you need to do. Go do what you need to do. I don't want to hear anyone talk about this, understand? I'm going to have a chat with the Jade Emperor. I should be back soon. When the time comes, the Jade Emperor will probably announce something very important to all of you. Stay here and wait for our return. The Jade Emperor walked out of the Jade Lake and stood in a rather desolate and cold spot. He looked forward with his hands behind his back. It must have been really bad. Yi Zichen walked beside the Jade Emperor, then took out a cigarette and put it in his mouth. He looked at the place where the Jade Emperor was staring, but he could only see nothingness. He could not help but speak. What the hell are you looking at? I can't see anything. That's where I just came from. At that moment, the Jade Emperor did not have any of the forcefulness he had when he wanted to capture Yi Zichen. Instead, his expression was filled with reluctance. I've stayed here for too long. I'm tired of everything here. But when I'm about to leave, I suddenly feel like I can't bear to leave this place. Yi Zichen, who was smoking, paused for some reason. What the Jade Emperor said really struck a chord in his heart. It was just like when he was in the modern realm. He hated that place immensely, but the place he wanted to return to the most was the place he hated the most. I understand. Yi Zichen smiled calmly. How long will it take? About half a month, said the Jade Emperor calmly. I can tell that you already have a candidate in mind, Yi Zichen said. Otherwise, you could just pick a random one right now. That person who inherits your position will be in a bit of a fluster. I do have a candidate in mind, the Jade Emperor nodded with a smile. The Jade Emperor nodded with a smile. I had already decided on the person who will inherit my position 10,000 years ago. It's just that I haven't ascended for so many years, so I can't give up my position. Isn't that great? Yi Zichen shrugged with a smile. I was really afraid that you would ask me to manage it for you. Do you know how much the Heavenly Court has driven me crazy in the past half a year? Now that I can finally step down, I'm finally free. Of course, having a suitable successor is also a good thing for you. It'll save you the trouble of worrying about this place after you ascend. Chapter 754. My roots are there. He was worried. Yi Zichen merely nodded in understanding. Indeed, it was normal for the Jade Emperor to be worried. From the situation just now, it could be seen that the Jade Emperor had ordered the immortals to capture and detain him, but none of the immortals present stood out. Ignoring the fact that some deities were not strong enough to capture Yi Zichen, what made the Jade Emperor disappointed was, they didn't even have the desire to capture Yi Zichen. On the contrary, just as he was about to suppress these immortals, some of them actually wanted to deal with him. This was what made him bitterly disappointed. This was what he was afraid of. The Heavenly Court's attention was directed towards Yi Zichen, so he was considering whether he should get rid of this problem before he left. Then you can directly finish it for me here. Yi Zichen shrugged with a smile. There are no outsiders here. Just get rid of me, and everything will be over. Do you think I don't dare? The Jade Emperor said with a gloomy expression. Of course you dare. Why wouldn't you dare? Yi Zichen smiled confidently, then smoked in satisfaction. No one can stop you now. You've already broken through to the supreme level, and I'm no match for you either. You're the knife and I'm the fish on your chopping block. How could I doubt whether you dare or not? Then why did you come with me? Why wouldn't I dare to come with you? Yi Zichen put out the cigarette in his hand, then patted away the ash on his body and stretched lazily. I don't have a guilty conscience, so why should I be afraid? Honestly speaking, I really don't have any interest in your heavenly court. The immortal realms are also part of the three realms, right? Even when that flame emperor begged me to go back to the immortal realms, I was unwilling. Do you think I would come to your heavenly court to snatch a position? If you say that, I can't trust you. The Jade Emperor's gaze remained locked onto Yi Zichen. He wasn't sure if Yi Zichen was truly uninterested in the heavenly court, or if this was the immortal regent's plan. Since you've said so much, I'll announce my surrender to you. Yi Zichen took a deep breath, then raised his eyebrows. I believe you already knew my identity from the very beginning, or rather, you already knew me before I came into contact with your heavenly court, right? The Jade Emperor remained silent. Even if you don't speak, I will still know. Back then, I, the Yellow Emperor, was a thorn in your side. If the people of the immortal region could find my reincarnation, I believe you can too. Let's not talk about my previous lives. In this life, I live in the abandoned land of your heavenly court, also known as the modern realm. The reason why I came here was because there was a problem in the modern world. I had no choice but to come to this place. All this while, my goal has always been to return to the modern world. You're going to ascend to the God world, and I can tell you that I'm going to ascend as well. Right now, I can be considered to be standing at the peak of the three realms, but I still haven't found a way to return. So, I can only go to the God realm to find a way to return. If the God realm doesn't work, I'll explore further. I will definitely return to the modern realm. That's where my roots are, do you understand? I don't care if you believe me or not. My words are right here. To be honest, I won't let you kill me. The moment you make a move, Lin Ru will come and save me. If you don't trust me, then I'm sorry, but I can't. I have to live. I have to return to the modern realm alive. I have a bunch of people around me who want to live with me." During that time, the Jade Emperor listened quietly to Yi Zichen speak his mind. At the same time, he tried to find some hints from Yi Zichen's words, or from his expression. Unfortunately, the Jade Emperor was actually moved by Yi Zichen's words. He actually believed Yi Zichen after seeing Yi Zichen's emotions. Perhaps it really was because Yi Zichen had invested too much of his emotions into Yi Zichen, who was about to leave, as well. Perhaps I'll be like Yi Zichen when I get to the God Realm. I'll try my best to return. No matter what, this is where my roots are. Yi Zichen bit his lips and squinted his eyes. He wasn't sure if his words would be able to make the Jade Emperor believe him or not. The Jade Emperor's breakthrough was all thanks to Yi Zichen. If the Jade Emperor still had a bit of conscience, then he shouldn't have attacked Yi Zichen. Of course, from the perspective of the Heavenly Court, it was understandable that the Jade Emperor wanted to get rid of Yi Zichen. The deities of the Heavenly Court were way too close to him. However, Yi Zichen definitely had to keep his life. All he could say was that if the Jade Emperor really wanted him to attack, then he would understand while feeling a bit disappointed. The Jade Emperor raised his hand. Yi Zichen's nerves tensed up. Then, the Jade Emperor's hand landed on Yi Zichen's shoulder. "I'll believe you this once." The Jade Emperor's eyes were still filled with disbelief as he said that. He pursed his lips and looked at Yi Zichen with a frown. "You helped me break through. You helped me break through. I'm definitely not the kind of person who forgets favors. But let me tell you, if the Heavenly Court falls into the hands of the Immortal Region after I ascend, don't forget, the people of the God Realm can descend. If the Immortal Region truly merges with the Heavenly Court, then don't blame me for bathing the Immortal Region in blood. Don't even think about living in peace in the God Realm. Don't worry." Yi Zichen, who had been tensed up, let out a long sigh. "I made the right bet." Of course, he still couldn't completely believe the Jade Emperor's words. It's not like he hasn't gone back on his words before. God knows if the Jade Emperor is planning to give me a huge present the moment I let my guard down. Lin Ru wouldn't be able to save him even if she wanted to. The Jade Emperor shook his head with a wry smile when he sensed Yi Zichen's wariness. "It seems like my character here is really terrible. I was in the wrong before, but I'm about to leave now. But now that I'm leaving, I also want to leave a good impression on you. I said that I wouldn't touch you, but I definitely wouldn't. Of course, don't disappoint me. In terms of character, I'm 10,000 times better than you. I wouldn't want your shitty Heavenly Court even if you gave it to me for free." Yi Zichen maintained a suitable distance from the Jade Emperor. Yi Zichen maintained a suitable distance from him. In response, the Jade Emperor merely nodded. "All right, let's go." "All right, since we've started chatting, then there's no need for us to stay here any longer. There are still plenty of deities in the Jade Lake waiting for us to return. I'm really worried that my subordinates will come and save you if we don't return. There are still many immortals in the Jade Lake waiting for us to return. I'm really worried that if we don't return, my subordinates will come to save you." With that, the Jade Emperor walked towards the Jade Lake. Not long after the Jade Emperor left, Yi Zichen's phone vibrated. Not long after he left, Yi Zichen's phone vibrated. Yi Zichen took out his phone and saw that it was a message from the Jade Emperor. "They're all gone, I'll give these to you." After this sentence, there was surprisingly a Chapter 755. Jade Emperor Ascension. Yi Zichen, who was lying in a celestial residence, looked at the phone in his hand. His chat with the Jade Emperor was displayed at the top of the screen. The red packet on the screen had already been checked, and it showed 200,000 reputation points. "Why are you giving me these?" He couldn't help but think back to when Yi Zichen had just received the red packet. His face was filled with indescribable shock. Reputation points. A total of 200,000 reputation points. Haven't you been exchanging prestige with those immortals in the group? I don't like to pay attention to these things, but that doesn't mean I don't know anything. The Jade Emperor, who was walking in front, seemed very carefree. He chuckled and heaved a sigh of relief. I'll wait for you in the God world. Yi Zichen couldn't help but shake his head when he recalled the Jade Emperor's carefree expression. Prestige. Now, he finally understood the purpose of this. Prestige was the most direct indicator of one's position in the struggle for the three realms. In other words, the three realms would each choose the person with the highest prestige to be the leader of that realm. As for the person with the highest prestige, he had a chance of becoming the master of the three realms. Of course, this required the approval of the other people on the reputation leaderboard. He had indeed been exchanging prestige with the immortals in the group. This was what the white-robed man had instructed him to do, and he had never forgotten about it. He had thought that his explanation was vague enough, but he did not expect the Jade Emperor to still notice it. However, the strangest thing was that he had actually passed the prestige to him after discovering it. Why didn't he pass the prestige to his successor? Reputation leaderboard of the three realms. Yi Zichen called out the reputation leaderboard. He was in second place with 290,000 reputation points. This meant that after deducting the 200,000 reputation points that the Jade Emperor had given him, he had painstakingly collected 90,000 reputation points. Yi Zichen put away the reputation leaderboard, then flipped around and chuckled. What should I say to you? For existences like Yi Zichen, half a month passed in the blink of an eye. During that time, Yi Zichen did not leave the heavenly court. He was invited to stay here to watch the Jade Emperor's ascension ceremony. The Jade Emperor also wanted him to meet the next master of the heavenly court, North Pole Emperor. To tell the truth, Yi Zichen wasn't surprised that they'd come looking for him. The one who could gain the trust of all the immortals naturally had to be one of the 6 emperors. Emperor Ziwei was the most respected of the 6 emperors, so no one would object to his candidacy. The Jade Emperor's ascension was too sudden, and the immortals of the heavenly court were caught unprepared. However, ascension was ascension. Even if he was the Jade Emperor, he could not escape the control of the rules. Southern Heavenly Gate. This was where the Jade Emperor would ascend to. The Southern Heavenly Gate was the first line of defense for the Heavenly Court. Due to his ascension, the immortals of the Heavenly Court would naturally all be present. In order to prevent the Devil Realm from launching a sneak attack, he simply placed the ascension site here. Of course, he was also being irresponsible to himself. If the Devil Realm really wanted to cause trouble at this time, then his ascension might be affected. Yi Zichen had told him about this possibility, but the Jade Emperor still did it without hesitation. Obviously, for him, the Heavenly Court was the most important to him. I'll leave this place to you from now on. The Jade Emperor couldn't help but remind the North Pole Emperor before leaving, even though he knew that the North Pole Emperor would not disappoint him. Leave it to me. The North Pole Emperor, who was dressed in a purple robe and had grizzled sideburns, nodded repeatedly. After receiving the North Pole Emperor's affirmation, the Jade Emperor looked towards the people who had worked with him for tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years. The surrounding immortals all looked reluctant to part. The Jade Emperor looked at them one by one with a smile. Finally, his gaze landed on Yi Zichen. Don't forget your promise to me. She smiled at him and nodded. Any answer right now was not as real as actual action. Whoosh! Holy rays of light fell from the sky and landed on the Jade Emperor, who was standing in the middle. The Jade Emperor pursed his lips when he sensed the light. The time has come. We'll meet again in the God Realm. The Jade Emperor, who was standing in the light, floated up uncontrollably. The immortals below kept waving at him. Even when he disappeared from their sight, the immortals still refused to leave. The 7 fairies, in particular, hugged each other and cried their eyes out. Ever since the Jade Emperor ascended, they had never tried to separate. Now that they saw the Jade Emperor ascend to the God realm, they must feel terrible. It seems like I won't be able to see the Seven Fairies concerts in the near future. Alright, the Jade Emperor's ascension was his lifelong wish. Now that he's gotten his wish, we should give him our blessings. He left this place to us before he left, so we mustn't disappoint him, the North Pole Emperor said. The rest of the immortals nodded in affirmation upon hearing the North Pole Emperor's words. The Jade Emperor ascended. Yi Zichen and the Flame Emperor left the Heavenly Court after declining the North Pole Emperor's request. On the way back, the Flame Emperor's expression was unfathomable. It was a mixture of yearning and loneliness. After a while, he suddenly let out a sigh. The Jade Emperor really ascended. Of course, the two of us witnessed the process of his ascension with our own eyes. You shouldn't be worried now, right? He won't be a threat to the immortal region anymore. Yi Zichen pursed his lips with a smile. The Flame Emperor shook his head. I don't really care about being a threat now. I'm thinking that we'll ascend in the future as well, right? Of course. We've lived here for so long. We're suddenly in an unfamiliar environment. What's more, we've spent so much time with these people. I really can't imagine what it'll be like. Yi Zichen couldn't help but imagine what would happen if I ascend. After thinking for a long while, he smiled. All good things must come to an end. Since we're cultivators, we naturally have to get used to parting. This is something we must experience. We'll meet again in the God realm if we can. That's true. The two of them returned to the outskirts of the immortal region. When they arrived at the gates of Maple City, the Flame Emperor said that he had to return to the immortal region to take care of some matters. Yi Zichen returned to the Longevity Courtyard alone. The moment he entered the hallway, he saw Stone and Xueqi pacing around anxiously. Did something happen? When they saw Yi Zichen, their expressions lit up with joy. You're right, Brother Yi. You're finally back. Were you guys waiting for me? Yi Zichen pointed at his nose. Zuomo was managing most of the matters here, so he was having a great time being the hands-off manager. Under normal circumstances, Zuomo would be able to take care of everything. If even she couldn't, then there was no point in asking him. Just look for Zuomo. Why me? The two immediately shook their heads. Xueqi said anxiously. Chapter 756. Clan Head Position. Clan Head Election. Due to the demon invasion, the Zhua clan's clan head election, which should have been held a long time ago, was only held now. The Zhua clan was the undisputed #1 clan in the outer regions of the Immortal Region, so the ceremony was naturally extremely grand. Everyone who was close to the treasure tower in the Immortal Region, or had some sort of status, were all present to witness the future master of the treasure tower. Of course, most of them already knew what was going to happen when they arrived. The Zhua clan did have many side branches, but only the direct descendants could become the clan head. Among the direct descendants, Zuomo was the only daughter of the current clan head, and she was very close to Yi Zichen. Everyone present knew very well that Zuomo would definitely become the future master of the treasure tower if nothing unexpected happened. Quite a few of the people who'd come to watch the ceremony had come because of Yi Zichen. They were all waiting to congratulate Zuomo after she became the clan head. Zuomo herself thought that it was already set in stone. But no one expected, "Elders, I need you to give me a reasonable explanation." Zuomo raised her eyebrows and stared at the elders sitting in the conference hall. Just now, the result of the elders' vote for the clan head was not Zuomo, nor was it Zhuo Qincheng. It was Zuoliang. After glaring at the clan head, Zuomo also looked towards Zuoliang. Zuoliang was wearing a luxurious black satin robe, which he had never dared to wear before. It was as if he had dressed up just for this day. Under his deliberate adornment, he appeared so handsome in the eyes of the crowd. Big Sister Zuomo, the results have already been announced. Why do you have to trouble us elders? Zuoliang smirked. It was clear that he was very pleased with himself, but he was unable to conceal the excitement in his heart. Yi Zichen looked at Zhuo, whose eyes were twitching non-stop, with an indifferent and playful expression. Indeed, the day had finally arrived. We are siblings. Even if I inherit the position of clan head in the future, don't worry, big sister Zhuo. I will definitely make sure you live a luxurious life for the rest of your life. Zhuo. Zhuo's almond-shaped eyes were filled with confusion as she stared in front of her. She really couldn't believe that Zhuo would jump out at this moment and say such words with such a gaze. Sister, I've had enough. Zhuo, who was wearing a robe, took a few steps forward. He shook his head with a faint smile and couldn't help but snort. You know what? I've had enough. In an instant, his expression turned cold. He stared coldly at the pale-faced Zhuo and sneered. Do you know how long I've waited for this day? Zhuo, in terms of business talent, you're not even a tenth of mine. Do you know, when I got my first big deal, you were just a little girl who cried while holding a doll. Actually, I'm very grateful to the Zhuo family. You brought me to the Zhuo family and changed my life completely. In order to repay you, I have continuously studied the way of business. Do you know how much I've sacrificed in order for the Zhuo family to look up to me? What are you trying to say? Zhuo frowned. Zhuo suddenly chuckled. He shrugged proudly as he looked at the rather confused elders. I can't believe it. I want to be the family head. The position of family head is mine, it's mine, Zhuo. Wow. The surrounding spectators were in an uproar. What's going on? An internal conflict in the family. A competition between the adopted son and the first wife's daughter? Looking at the result, the group of onlookers could tell that Zhuo had schemed a lot before this. However, the elders were rather strange. All of them stared blankly in front of them as if their minds were being controlled. Many of the spectators secretly used the spirit concentration technique on the elders, but it was to no avail. Should we do something about it? Xia Kiki opened her eyes wide as she watched the scene. The girls also came over out of respect for Yi Zichen. That's not a good idea, Su Yin frowned. But we can't let that guy become the family head, right? Although Xia Kiki didn't really like Zhuo, that was only limited to the competition for Yi Zichen. She didn't want Zhuo to end up in someone else's hands. She especially didn't like that Zhuo. How? At that moment, Xiao Yumei, who was carrying Tian, spoke up. No matter what, this is the Zhuo family's internal affairs. We have no right to interfere. There are plenty of people who are close to Zhuo here, but do you think they're doing anything? She looked around and saw that Ruan Qingtian was the most direct. He could be considered close friends with Zhuo. At that moment, he looked at Zhuo with a dark expression and clenched his fists tightly. However, he merely sat in his seat without moving. We're outsiders in the end. Interfering will only harm Zhuo. I saw Stone and Xueqi leave hurriedly just now. If I'm not wrong, they should be going to find Zichen. We'll deal with it when he comes. As expected of the big sister of the group, Xiao Yumei was able to see the situation more clearly. Then let's wait for Zichengij. Xia Kiki nodded obediently, then pouted and clenched her fists. I'm so angry. I really want to punch that guy into a meat patty and feed it to Xiao Bai. Little White, who was in human form, was dumbfounded. You, trembling with anger, Zhuo gritted her teeth and ran towards Zhuo. However, at that moment, Zhuo Qingqing smiled and stopped her with several Sky Immortal-level guest chamberlains. Seeing this, quite a few guest chamberlains appeared behind Zhuo and looked at each other. You're actually working together? Zhuo said. There's nothing I can do about it. Zhuoliang being the patriarch is much better than you being the patriarch. Zhuo Qingqing covered her mouth and giggled. At the same time, Zhuo Hongxin also walked out and said, My dear niece, it's just an election for the patriarch. Anyone can become the next patriarch. You don't have to be so concerned. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned to Zhuo Hongda, who was sitting in the middle. Big brother, Who do you think should be the patriarch? All of a sudden, the current patriarch, Zhuohongde, became the center of attention. The elders might only be giving their opinions, but the final result would still be up to Zhuohongde to announce. Those with sharp eyes instantly noticed that Zhuohongde, who was sitting in the chair, was just like the elders from before. He was staring blankly ahead with a blank expression. He only opened his eyes in a daze when he heard Zhuohongxin's question. Chapter 757. Love. A proud smile spread across Zhuoliang's face. He shrugged playfully at Zhuemo, then walked towards Zhuohongde with a humble expression. There was a sandalwood box on Zhuohongde's left. He opened the box and took out a handprint. The family head handprint. This handprint represented the highest authority of the Zhuo family. The person who held this handprint would be the rightful family head of the Zhuo family. Zhuoliang's burning gaze fell on the handprint, and for some reason, his breathing became a little hurried. It was this handprint. He had worked so hard for so many years just for this tiny handprint. Father! Zhuemo stared in shock at her father, who was about to pass the handprint to Zhuoliang. She quickly noticed the confusion on her father's face and shouted, Zhuoliang! Putting everything in front of them together, anyone would be able to guess that all of this was done by Zhuoliang. Zhuohongde must have fallen for Zhuoliang's tricks. Otherwise, he wouldn't be like this. However, she still couldn't believe that the person who had been by her side for more than 10 years, who was more like her own brother, could be such a person. Zhuoliang didn't even look at her. He slowly raised his hand and waited for the handprint that represented the entire Zhuo family to be handed to him. How could he turn back now that he had come this far? As long as he received this handprint, he would be the rightful family head of the Zhuo family. The future of the Zhuo family would be his. I can't take it anymore. At this moment, Ruan Qingtian, who had been clenching his fists, stood up from the VIP seats. The followers around him were stunned for a moment before they stood up with him. Qingtian, Zhuemo was stunned. Ruan Qingtian landed next to Zhuemo and gave her a reassuring look before glaring at Zhuoliang angrily. Zhuoliang, to think that I treated you as my brother. I really wonder if your conscience has been eaten by a dog. Don't you have any idea who you are? Pavilion Master Ruan, this is the Zhuo family's matter. It's not good for an outsider like you to interfere. Zhuo Qingqing giggled. She swayed her hips and moved closer. Her seductive eyes were still flirtatious. The guest chamberlains beside her also locked onto Ruan Qingtian's followers to prevent them from acting rashly. Scram! Ruan Qingtian raised his brows and glared at Zhuo Qingqing coldly. You're right, Zhuo Qingqing. Don't show off in front of me. If you dare to say another word of nonsense, I will dig your eyes out today. Zhuo Qingqing subconsciously took a step back when she felt Ruan Qingtian's murderous aura. She was actually not very strong. She relied on her ability to show off and the Zhuo family to support her in this circle. It was no exaggeration to say that if she had been born in the Zhuo family, she would have been the top girl in a brothel. Brother Qingtian, speaking like this will damage your image. Unknowingly, Zhuoliang had already walked over and naturally placed his arm around Zhuo Qingqing's waist. Seeing that Zhuo Qingqing did not reject him, it was obvious that the two of them had been together for a long time. You've always been humble and gentle in front of outsiders, yet you're saying such vulgar words now. How shocking. But why are you doing this? Does Zhuemo even have feelings for you? Shut up. You've been secretly in love with her for more than 10 years, but she never showed any feelings for you in the end. There are so many guests here. Who would want to get involved? Just you. Is it worth it? I told you to shut up. Bang. The punch sent Zhuoliang flying. Zhuo Qingqing quickly ran over and carefully helped him up. However, he only smiled and shook his head at Ruan Qingtian. This punch is my repayment for your previous favor. You should be thanking me. If it wasn't for me, Zhuemo might never have known that she had such a stupid protector like you by her side. I'm definitely going to be the Zhuo family head. If you want to stop me, then come at me. Qing Tian. If it wasn't for Zhuoliang, Zhuemo really wouldn't have known all this. She looked at her playmate who she had known for more than 10 years in front of her in astonishment, not knowing what to say for a moment. The family head position will definitely be yours in the end. Ruan Qingtian didn't explain anything. He didn't know how to explain it either. He couldn't deny that Zhuoliang was telling the truth. It's been 10-odd years. He had always been in love with Zhuemo. It had been like that since he was young, and it hadn't changed even now. However, Zhuemo had never shown any signs of love towards him. Only when Yi Zichen appeared did he decide to bury his feelings in the bottom of his heart forever. There was no need for him to trouble Zhuemo for his own selfish desires. He didn't want to see Zhuemo troubled. I love her. I'll just look at her silently. Perhaps after a few years, the feelings will slowly fade away. Of course, after more than a decade, he admitted that this was just self-deception, but he would rather believe this kind of self-deception. Ruan Qingtian let out a sigh of relief, then disappeared from his original position. Zhuohongda is definitely being controlled by something, so it's impossible for him to change his mind. Since that's the case, I'll just snatch the seal. Zhuemo is working with Ruan Qingtian to forcefully take the family head's seal. Guest chamberlains of the Zhuo family, hurry up and take them down! Zhuohongxin roared angrily. Not long later, several guest chamberlains appeared. However, a group of Ruan Qingtian's attendants and Zhuomo's guest chamberlains appeared in front of them. The expressions of the other guests changed drastically when they saw this. Of course, there were also quite a few of them who just wanted to watch the show. The Zhuo family was indeed the #1 merchant family, but their existence also blocked the path of many other families. Now that so many interesting things had happened during the Zhuo family's family head handover, they were naturally delighted. Big Sister Xiao, how about we go and help as well? Su Yan spoke up. Even she wanted to go and help at a time like this. Xia Kiki naturally nodded in agreement. She had wanted to go from the very beginning, especially since she had just broken through to the Sky Immortal level due to the ley line. She wanted to experience how great it was to beat someone up as a Sky Immortal. However, they still had to listen to Xiao Yumei's opinion. No matter what, Xiao Yumei was the big sister among them. Xiao Yumei didn't say anything. She didn't know whether she should act rashly or not. From her point of view, the best solution was to wait for Yi Zichen. Indeed, they could forcefully take the family head's seal if they went up. The seal was indeed in Zhuomo's hands, but it didn't leave her with a good reputation. She also believed that Zhuemo wouldn't want to accept the seal like that. Chapter 758. Chapter 758. Hand over. Just as Xiao Yumei and the others were discussing whether they should help or not, the two sides started fighting. Zhuemo stood in the middle of the training grounds, not knowing what to do. She didn't want to see this happen. Stop, all of you! But at this moment, her scolding was clearly insignificant. Both sides were focused on their own masters, unleashing their dazzling spiritual technique. Qingtian, hurry up and tell your men to stop. Since no one listened to her, Zhuemo could only ask Ruan Qingtian for help. However, the other party only smiled at him and didn't order his follower to stop. Instead, he resolutely rushed towards the place where the handprints intersected. You're not qualified to be the family head, Ruan Qingtian roared with a dark expression. But to his surprise, Zhuoliang didn't even look at him, as if he didn't even care about him. Could it be that he still has a backup plan? Ruan Qingtian didn't lose his rationality even though he was enraged. He looked around cautiously at anything that could pose a threat to him. But even when he was about to reach Zhuoliang's back, no one attacked him. Bang! Just at this moment, a loud explosion rang out. Ruan Qingtian suddenly fell back, and a trickle of blood could clearly be seen flowing down his forehead. There's a spiritual formation master, Ruan Qingtian thought to himself. He was just about to reach Zhuohongda. However, half a meter in front of him, His body came into contact with an invisible barrier. Qingtian. Zuemo cried out and ran over when she saw Yuan Qingtian fall back. When she saw the blood on his forehead, she took out a handkerchief and carefully wiped it for him. "You're injured," she murmured softly with a worried expression. Yuan Qingtian's heart trembled as he enjoyed Zuemo's meticulous wiping, but he quickly moved her hand away, not daring to look her in the eye. He pushed himself off the ground and stood up. "I don't need you to care about me. The position of family head is definitely yours," he purposely replied in a cold tone, but he couldn't help but recall the scene from before. The trembling in his heart became more and more obvious. He could only constantly warn himself not to think about it. At the same time, he pondered over how to break this spiritual array. Normally, a spirit array would have a base and an array eye. As long as he could find them, the spirit array would definitely be broken. Releasing his spiritual sense, he carefully explored every corner, but the result, no. He did not find any clues at all, not even the array foundation. Zuoliang seemed to have known about it. He just shrugged at him with a playful smile, his eyes filled with playfulness and sarcasm. Boom! He swung his fist forcefully at the invisible barrier, and the huge roar startled the surrounding guests. There was a spirit array. "Do we have a spirit formation master here?" Xiao Yumei suddenly asked. "I am." He had come with Little White to find Yi Zichen, but Yi Zichen wasn't in Maple City at the time, so he came with Xiao Yumei and the others to attend the Zhuo family's grand event. "Can you break this spiritual formation?" "I'm not sure. I need some time to observe it." With that, Zhuge Kongming frowned and closed his eyes. Lil Ming's attainments in spiritual formations aren't bad. What's more, the Zhuge family is proficient in the art of Qi Men Dun Jia. This spirit array is simple for him. No, Zhuge Kongming suddenly shook his head. Zhuge Kongming, who had his eyes closed, suddenly shook his head and said, "This spiritual formation is very strange. Actually, I noticed it from the very beginning and have been looking for a way to break it. However, I have no clue at all." "No way, even you can't do it?" Little White was shocked. Hearing Little White's exclamation, Zhuge Kongming merely closed his eyes and said nothing. Little did he know, Tian, who was chewing on a lollipop on Xiao Yumei's shoulder, raised her eyebrows, then ignored him. "Break." In front of the spirit array, Yuan Qingtian kept punching the barrier with his fists, and the booming sounds never stopped. His hands were already covered in blood. His earlier madness had caused him to be extremely lacking in spiritual energy. However, he continued to exhaust his spiritual energy in an attempt to break the spirit array. He didn't care. Even if he became a cripple in the future, he didn't want to see Zuemo's helpless gaze ever again. He had to help her take back the position of family head. Bang bang bang. Outside the spirit array, Yuan Qingtian continued to destroy it in a frenzy. The ceremony within the spirit array continued as planned. Everyone could tell that Zuoliang was the mastermind behind all of this. However, he seemed to be going through a normal ceremony. He knelt on one knee, raised his hands high, and waited for the seal to be handed over to him. However, what made him a little anxious was that Zuohongda was still tightly holding onto the seal, unwilling to let go even after 15 minutes had passed. Especially when he saw Zuoliang on the ground, his expression was somewhat hesitant. "Father, since you chose me to be the family head, give me the seal." Zuohongda, who was kneeling on the ground, couldn't help but speak up. Left Face, who was kneeling on the ground, could not help but speak. His words seemed to contain an endless amount of magic. The moment he finished speaking, Zuohongda, who had been motionless all this time, suddenly moved. The seal slowly moved towards his hand. As the seal got closer and closer, Zuoliang's eyes grew brighter and brighter. Until the seal reached his hand. He wanted to hold onto the seal and get up, but he felt a resistance coming from the other side. He looked up and saw that it was Zuohongda, who was holding onto the seal with a dazed expression. Give me the seal. Zhuoliang smiled and wanted to take the seal, but Zhuohongda was still holding onto it tightly. Suddenly, Zhuohongda's expression darkened. He forcefully pulled at the bottom of the seal. Since you've made me the family head, stop holding onto the seal. Smack. The seal left Zhuohongda's hand, and Zhuoliang also held onto the seal for real. The corners of his mouth curled up sinisterly. He immediately stood up, turned around, and raised the handprint high up. From now on, I am the new family head of the Zhuo family. Zhuoliang laughed impudently. Ruan Qingtian, who was frantically destroying the spirit array, froze when he saw this, then tried even harder to destroy it. Zhuemo also looked at the seal in a daze, then shook her head at Zhuoliang. Lil Liang. You can't call me Lil Liang anymore, Sister Zhuemo. You have to call me family head now. Zhuemo bit her lips and clenched her fists tightly, hearing Zhuoliang's mocking voice. Ruan Qingtian swung his fist without hesitation when he saw Zhuoliang poking his head out. However, Zhuoliang had already retracted his head and snorted indifferently. Zhuemo colluded with outsiders and coveted the position of family head. I hereby expel Zhuemo from the Zhuo family and strip her of the Zhuo family surname. Who dares? Smack. Just as Zhuoliang was giving orders with a gloomy expression, a pair of hands suddenly appeared on his shoulders, and a low and somewhat mocking whisper was heard. Chapter 759. It's finally here. The whisper in his ear and the hands on his shoulder made the smile on Zhuoliang's face disappear instantly. Who could it be? He had appeared behind him without him knowing, and he had even used such a tone. People should be grateful. The Zhuo family has been good to you. Why are you so ungrateful? Could it be that your conscience was eaten by a dog? The person standing behind Zhuoliang was wearing a black robe and a large hat that covered his entire face. The surrounding guests wanted to see his face, but they could only see a dark shadow. On the other hand, Xiao Bai frowned unhappily. Why did they have to take the blame now? However, the tip of his nose twitched slightly. The person standing in front of him smelled very familiar. I don't know who you are, but this is the Zhuo family. Please think carefully before you speak. Zhuoliang didn't turn around and only threatened Zhuo Hongxin. At the same time, he kept gesturing at Zhuo Hongxin. Are you threatening me? The black-robed man smiled. Zhuo Hongxin, who had received the signal, frowned and immediately shouted to the guest chamberlains around him. This black-robed man must be Zhuomo's accomplice. Guests, listen up, quickly capture him. The surrounding foreign chamberlains all rushed towards the black-robed man. In response, the black-robed man merely raised his hand. The group of guest chamberlains all seemed to have their necks strangled. They stopped in midair with painful expressions on their faces and kept kicking their legs. Scram! With a loud shout, the group of celestial immortals were all thrown out by the black-robed man. The surrounding people were all dumbfounded. This was a sky immortal. Even though this was the Golden Age, with the support of the dragon vein, everyone's strength had increased greatly. However, celestial immortals were still celestial immortals. They were still one of the most supreme powers of the three realms. This black-robed man actually threw out nearly 10 heaven immortal experts without any effort. Was there really such a person in the immortal domain? Yes, there were indeed such people. You're finally here. Sitting in the guest seats, Xiao Yumei pursed her lips and smiled. As soon as the black-robed man appeared, she already knew his true identity. She was too familiar with him. That person is definitely Zichenji. Xia Kiki also smiled excitedly. Yeah, he's here, Su Yan nodded. The women all had an inexplicable feeling towards Yi Zichen, or rather, they felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity towards him. It's actually boss. Hearing the words of the sisters-in-law around him, Xiao Bai could not help but nod his head. No wonder he felt that the smell was a little familiar. Do you think they can deal with me? At the same time, the black-robed man behind Zhuoliang sneered and took off his hat. When he revealed a playful smile, the surrounding guests all stood up and saluted him. Emperor Yi Zichin. Zhuomo's eyes also lit up with passion. She did suspect that it might be Yi Zichin when the black-robed man appeared, but Yi Zichin hadn't been in the immortal region recently, so she couldn't be sure. When she saw that it was really him, her heart, which had been hanging in the air, suddenly relaxed. With him around, there would definitely be no accident. Ruan Qingtian, who was lying on the ground with his hands covered in blood, was stunned when he saw Yi Zichin. Then he subconsciously glanced at Zhuomo, and couldn't help but smile wryly when he saw the smile on her face. Then, as if he had thought of something, he reached his hand forward. The barrier was still there, but Yi Zichin had entered it from the outside. I really can't compare to you. The surrounding guests saluted Yi Zichin. The surrounding guests bowed towards Yi Zichin. Seeing that, Yi Zichin merely smiled towards them, then walked in front of Zhuoliang with his hands in his pockets and bent down to look at Zhuoliang, whose eyes were filled with panic. You can't touch me. I'm the head of the Zhuo clan of the immortal region. Even if the people of the sacred land come, they have no right to execute me. Zhuoliang held the seal tightly, and placed it between him and Yi Zichin like a protective talisman. Yi Zichin reached out and grabbed the seal, then pursed his lips. Now that the seal is in my hands, doesn't that mean I'm the head of the Zhuo clan now? With that, Yi Zichin chucked another seal towards Zhuomo. Zhuomo carefully caught the handprint, then heard Yi Zichin's voice. Now that Zhuomo has the handprint, doesn't that mean she's the head of the Zhuo clan now? I have to say, the Zhuo family's patriarch is really casual. Whoever has the handprint is the patriarch. Yi Zichin's tone was filled with mockery. On the way here, he'd gotten a rough idea of what was going on. When he heard the news that Zhuoliang was going to be the patriarch, he couldn't believe it. Previously, Zhuoliang had always given him the impression of a sunny little brother. No one would have thought that he had hidden his true self so deeply. Until he came here and saw Zhuoliang's actions with his own eyes. If you admit your mistake now, with that, Yi Zichin suddenly noticed that Zhuoliang, who was a bit scared earlier, had calmed down. Not long after, he actually smiled. Of course the position of the Zhuo clan's patriarch wouldn't be so casual. What a pity, if you came 15 minutes earlier, then I might not even be the patriarch. But I'm sorry, I just received the handprint from the previous patriarch. I became the Zhuo clan's patriarch through proper means, and everyone acknowledges it. Yi Zichin raised his eyebrows. No matter who has the handprint right now, I am the Zhuo clan's patriarch. With so many guests watching, so what if you're the Yellow Emperor? Are you saying that you can decide who the Zhuo clan's patriarch will be? Yi Zichin looked at Zhuoliang in confusion. He really wondered where this kid got his confidence from. All of a sudden, Yi Zichin couldn't help but laugh. After a long while, he stopped laughing and tilted his head. Where did you get your confidence from? This isn't confidence, I'm just stating facts. Zhuoliang pursed his lips with a smile. As the Yellow Emperor of the sacred land of the immortal region, you don't have the right to interfere with the matters of the mundane clans of the immortal region. What's more, aren't you afraid of tarnishing the reputation of the immortal region with so many people here? Yi Zichin couldn't help but laugh again. He looked at Zhuoliang like he was an idiot. He was starting to wonder if the kid was scared silly. There's no helping it, I can only teach him a lesson. It was a lesson about strength and status.